Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The mayor has called the meeting to order. Vice Mayor Kaplan.
Here.
Councilmember De La Cruz.
Here.
Councilmember Gross.
Here.
Mayor Lindsay.
Here.
Councilmember McCormick.
Here.
Councilmember Moss.
Here.
Councilmember Petros.
Here.
We do have a quorum, Madam Mayor. With us this evening to give an invocation is Rabbi Yoel Caroline with Chabad of Key Biscayne. Please. Thank you for being here. Please rise.
I'd like to address the words of the invocation tonight to, since the world is facing a real epidemic of addiction, and so is our country, and so is our community. So it's our job to offer hope. So I'd like to, there's many ways to offer hope into this terrible struggle with addiction, but and it includes psychoeducation and medicine, and it also includes spirituality. So to offer one thought of hope, I'm a rabbi, it comes from the Torah. Tonight is a Jewish holiday that's in the Torah, but very few people seem to know about it. And I'm going to tell you about it in 30 seconds. The Jewish people were asked to offer an offering to God when they left Egypt after being slaves, but some of them were spiritually, ritually impure, and they were unable to do so. They came to Moses, and they said to Moses, yes, we weren't able to, but we want to. We want to have that connection. We want to have that connection with God. And Moses said, I don't know what to do. So he said, I'll ask God. And God told him, because these people really wanted to, and it was, by the way, I forgot to tell you, it was the Passover offering, I'm going to make a special holiday for them. And it's going to be called the second Passover. So I don't know if anyone ever heard of it, but it's in the Torah, and tonight is the second Passover. And the lesson is there's always hope. There's always hope. It's never too late, and we can always fix that which needs to be fixed. And I think that's our responsibility as humanity, is to inspire hope in each other, and especially when it comes to such a terrible struggle like the disease of addiction. One of the best things we can do is offer hope. So tonight, I ask God to help all those who are struggling, to give them hope, and to let them know and feel that there is hope, and just want it a little bit. And each of us should want to and be inspired to reveal hope in ourselves, of course, and then in each other. And of course, may God bless this council to be able to do so in their leadership position and all of us in the community. Thank you.
Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
And now I'd like to invite our Key Biscayne Community School members who are here, and they are future mayors, council members, police chiefs, fire chiefs, managers, and leaders. Come up before us and lead the pledge.
And clerk.
Welcome. We're so glad to have you here. Okay? On your mark, get set, go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First item on the agenda, Madam Mayor, is brief comments by council.
I just wanted to welcome our representatives from the Key Biscayne Community School, and I'd want to thank their parents who participated in a council member, mayor, and community manager, our village manager, chief, fire chief, and police chief. They did it as part of a live auction, but also to teach their children about government and about engaging in community and how important it is to communicate with your leaders. So we welcome you. We're so happy you're here, and we support the school and are always happy to help. We are part of a village and a community. Allison?
I just wanted to say thank you to the fire department, especially to Lieutenant Justin Connors, Leah Frary and Robert Abad for the wonderful response they had to my house and the incredible level of care that they gave to my son, who is obviously alive and well, and they were amazing and incredibly professional, and I wanted to say thank you.
Mr. Kaplan? Vice Mayor?
Brief eulogistic note. I was sad to see that Basha Hicks had passed, and I thought to just mention her. She contributed enormously over the years in various capacities to the village, and it's a sad passing.
Absolutely, thank you. Mr. Moss?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that for the 3 new council members here, one of our first projects that we actually seen come to fruition is the beach renourishment project. And I just want to thank the manager and all the staff that helped to do that, because on Sunday I actually walked all the way along the beach to see how it looked, and it was a great improvement, but I think we still have a lot of work to do for the next project.
Thank you. And
Oh,
now-
one thing.
Yes.
Just a report. I brought up some time ago overflights by helicopters and tour planes and wondered if anyone was as annoyed as I was. It seems that the answer is there's quite a bit of annoyance. I've looked at the work we did some years ago on commercial overflights. There's a body of advocacy on this. The question is a little different on commercial private aviation. We'll try to get to the bottom of this quickly and come back and decide what we want to do about this, if anything.
Thank you. Thank you. And now,
Next item.
yes, please.
Next item is special introduction of Building, Zoning, and Planning Director, Sergio Ascunce. Mr. Manager.
Mayor and Council, if I may, I'm very proud and relieved to be able to fill one of the vacant director's positions that we had within the village. I have chosen to introduce tonight and to bring onto the team Mr. Sergio Ascunce. He's currently the building director in Hallandale Beach, but I'm going to let him tell you the thing that impressed me the most was he started the Doral Building and Zoning Department when they were first incorporated, and a lot of the things and a lot of the programs that we started back then, he's been able to enhance. He brings a lot of experience to the table. He brings a lot of new ideas, and he brings a lot of comfort with some of the things that we have been struggling with for the last couple of years. I think timing being important in life, I think this is a very, very good time to introduce somebody who's going to be able to deal with and work with our situations over the next 2 years. So, Sergio, welcome, please.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, council members, Mr. Manager, I'm truly humbled to have been selected to be your next director here at Key Biscayne. I'm looking forward to become part of the team here. I'm looking forward to getting a start. We kind of got some start already tonight with one of your items, so we're all excited, looking forward to hit the ground running and be a part of the team here. So as Mr. Manager said, I come to you with about 25 years of municipal experience. Way back in 1992 when I started in the city of Miami Beach and then moved around. And yes, Doral was a great opportunity for me to establish a brand new building department from scratch. I think as a professional, it's rare that we get that opportunity. And I used what I had learned up to then, and I learned quite a bit, and I continue to apply what I learned throughout my career. So I hope that I can contribute to this community all that I can and make it what it is today.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Sergio.
Next item, Madam Mayor, is agenda approval.
Public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's some really important comments.
Public
I know,
comments.
public comments. I apologize.
And our first speaker is Theodore McCormick. Please state your name and address.
My name is Teddy McCormick. I live at 245 Glenridge Road, and I think there's too much speeding, especially in the school zones. I can barely go outside into the street and ride my bike without having to worry about being hit by a car. I think you should fix it by adding more speed bumps in every street.
Thank you very much.
That was an extremely lucid presentation.
Do we have any additional public comments from our Key Biscayne Community School students? Our next speaker is Viviana Domit.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Mayra. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I wanted to
Can you
talk.
state your name and address for the record, please?
I am Viviana Domit. I live in 791 Crandon Boulevard,
Thank you.
in Florida, 33149. I am here to talk about the turf versus natural grass. I know it's a decision that has been made by the council, and because we have children here, I am here, I feel, because I'm a mother, to represent the interest of children. They are the ones who use the park mostly, and I've really researched into it, and there are many, many, many more injuries in artificial turf and more damaging for them than in natural turf, even in the conditions we have the park today. I understand you took this decision because of pressure, because of money, the money it takes to maintain this park, and because the overuse, and you need more fields. But I want to express to you the necessity of the community to have nature more than ever. Like the rabbi said, there are many addictions, and it is proved that the lack of contact with nature promotes this kind of attitudes in children. I also believe that we are a very privileged community, and there is not a lack of money here, so we could even replace the natural grass every year. My little boy is 7 and he loves soccer, but if the field is artificial, I will of course not let him play there, because I brought pictures of friends of mine that their children have been injured there, and it's really, really sad. And I know you took the decision, but I'm asking you to have maybe the hope or the humility to know that we might have not chosen correctly, and it's better to change it now than when we have caused so much damage. Because, I don't know, Mayor, I'm sorry, but for example,
please.
we think it's a great idea until our son comes with a burn this size that doesn't go away after 10 years, because this is what happens. So I believe there could be better options to arrange this, I am sure. So I ask you just to open for the possibility, find better solutions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Our next speakers are Susana and Alexa Moss. Your names and address, please.
My name is Susanna Moss, and my address is 731 Crandon Boulevard. I'm talking about traffic today because people are not following signs in houses that say, drive like your kids live here. And I want to, as Teddy said, I want to put also speed bumps.
Alexa?
Go ahead.
My name is Alexa, and my address is 731 Crandon Boulevard. I want to talk about recycling. I see some garbage in my school, in the park, and that's not good for the earth, because then the animals are gonna eat it, and then we don't have nature because the animals are gonna die.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Carlos de la Cruz, Jr.
Good evening, Carlos de la Cruz Jr., 460 South Mashta. I'm coming to talk also about the grass on the fields, and I understand the complexity that we'll never have a perfect field if not, and it's just an impossibility to maintain it to those standards. But I grew up on this island, and this island, as far as I'm concerned, was a perfect place to grow up. Yet it wasn't a perfect place. Everything wasn't as perfect as it is today. Everything's prettier and manicured and all that kind of stuff. And part of growing up is running into bumps or, not having a perfect playing field. I mean, that's our kids when they grow up. If some of them make it to professional soccer, that day they'll experience a perfect playing field. So I really believe that in terms of the experience, it's a much better experience. In terms of the heat, I'm sure you're aware of it, it's a huge issue. I know that in some places they have to put sprinkler systems to cool it down and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure you're doing that. But basically these kids are going to be running on rubber, is what they're going to be, on rubber, little rubber pellets is what we're going to be running on. And I just feel that part of the experience of growing up is that imperfect grass. So let's get back to just to what the old way, and bring it back to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Laudi Ibarra.
Hi, good evening. I'm Laudi Ibarra. I live on 482 Fernwood, and I am here to support the artificial turf. I think that I know we're trying to make the environment and make it safe, but a friend got injured just now playing rugby at the park this weekend. I have a picture of her. It's dirt and mud. So we have been trying to work out. I've been living here for 15 years, work it out, and it really doesn't function the way it should. It is now. My son also plays soccer. We go there every Monday and Wednesday, and it's disgusting. So I know that you guys were also saying that it's going to be something temporary and until we find another solution, but I think that for now, that will work best for now. We also use pesticide, which is horrible for our environment and for us and our kids. So we just have to consider that. And also we're using a lot of water, utilizing a lot of water to maintain the field, and it's not working. So we're actually wasting water by doing that. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rafaela Piazzesi.
Yes. Hi, my name is Rafaela Piazzesi. I live at 701 Crandon Boulevard. I'm here to oppose the turf as well. I'm sure everyone is aware of the health risks that has been mentioned, the heat that has been mentioned, the injuries. Injuries will happen if it's artificial turf or if it's natural grass that has dirt. I do believe we have to be natural. We have to go with what's been here for long. It's a village green. It's not a soccer field. It's not a rugby field. It's a village green where our kids go to play, where our kids get in touch with nature, and we should maintain what's best for the village. We should maintain what keeps us close to nature. And it's not, I'm sure and I'm aware that the project is calculated with costs and everything, but we should also consider that we use pesticides now, but we will use chemicals to clean the turf. I'm sure it has to be done. That's the rubber pellets that we breathe and that the kids that will be running around breathe. And as I said, injuries will happen. We cannot do something artificial, hoping that our kids won't fall. They will continue to fall, and they will burn themselves, and injuries will become worse. So that's just my position. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Reinaldo Irragori.
Hi, how are you? How are you, Mayor? How are you, member of the council? I'm here to oppose the turf.
Can you please state-
445
And your
Grand Bay
name?
Drive,
Reynaldo.
Reynaldo Iragorri.
Thank you.
I have a question for you guys. I understand that it's prohibited to use artificial turf in houses, am I correct?
Front yards.
Yeah, front yards. And the reason is because it looks really bad. So what rationale do we have to prohibit that in houses and to occupy the best part of Key Biscayne with artificial turf? So I'm not an expert in turf. I'm pretty sure that it's probably, I don't know if it's safer or not safer or whatever, but part of Key Biscayne is the beauty, the nature, and I believe if you guys have the rationale to prohibit that in houses, it is absurd that you're gonna put that in the village green. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Michael Davey.
Mike Davey, 50 Ocean Lane Drive. I'm here, I was here to speak on the EAB to make sure that we have a new member appointed tonight. I think Sully or whoever is going to be appointed, but I want to get that done. We got a lot of work to do. I didn't see it on the agenda. I am going to speak in favor of the turf. Folks, we've been at this for 6 years now? We've been over everything. We know the science. We've been through the studies. I recognize the people of opposition, but the fact is we've got to get this done. As the gentleman said, I oppose the ordinance against turf in the front yards. I think if people want to have it, they can have it. I do agree that, natural gas is better, but at this point, we need these fields. I mean, it looks like the Battle of Verdun out there. So let's move forward. You got the project moving, get it done. If it's temporary, fine. It's only 28% of our village green. It's not the best solution, but at this point, it's the best we've got. So please move this forward, keep it going, work on other things. We've got so many things to do. Let's just keep this project going, keep the turf in place as long as we have to have it.
Thank you. Our last speaker, and my apologies, is Mauricio Jaramillo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been living in Key Biscayne for 28 years.
State your name and address for the record,
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry. My name is Mauricio Jaramillo, 791 Crandon Boulevard, apartment 401.
Thank you.
I've been living in the Key for 28 years, and it's my first time in a meeting of the council, so thank you very much. And again, I have never asked anything, but when I hear about the turf, I was like, ouch. And this is a beautiful place again. I mean, we're going against everything that we're trying to do nowadays in everything. Green space, we're looking for lots. We're trying to make this environment much better. And now we're going to go in the middle of Key Biscayne at the entrance, put a turf. It's like, ouch. I mean, what's the rationale behind this thing? The gentleman just said something about playing fields. Look, Maradona and Pelé were the best soccer players in the world. They grew up playing in dust. I mean, and now our kids cannot play in this beautiful grass, green grass, natural grass in Key Biscayne. I just can't believe this thing, and I think this decision should be reconsidered. There's not a perfect solution, and maybe it's not perfect, but we're going to implement a solution which is even worse than what we have, and it goes against the environment. It's plastic. It has chemicals, and if you read about the rating and reports on this thing, it's not recommended anymore. So I think we should take this decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Our public comments are closed. Our next item.
Agenda additions, approval of deferrals, additions, deletions, substitutions, withdrawals.
Yes, I have a couple of things. One, we have a special presentation from the school district, Miami-Dade School District. We have Dr. Strickland, Dr. Payne, and Mr. Pace here to address our Mast Academy issue, and I thank you very much for being here. I would like to add them to the beginning of the meeting. They've come a very long way. And my other addition is our lobbyist, Fausto Gomez, would like to come before us at 9:30 to give us a legislative update. The session closed yesterday, so if you could indulge me with that. And then last, as part of a, and with the school district's presentation, I'd like to move item 4, which was a placeholder under our reports and recommendations by mayor and council member. Last, I'd like to add a discussion on allocation of playing fields and programming for teens in Under the Lights, and it's something that I know that is council member McCormick is interested in, but I thought we'd do it as placeholder for us to, okay. Any other additions, deletions? Yes.
Add the appointment of an EAB member?
It's there. Mm-hmm.
No, you have reduction of.
Yeah, you only have a reduction from 9 to 7?
It is under reports and recommendations, and it is review of village committees.
Oh, I
And
didn't
that's,
realize
yes,
that was
yes,
what you meant.
yes.
Okay, then no need to add it.
You're saying that the first reading will accomplish the appointment?
No.
No, it was at a different,
Under 11A2,
yes.
the review of village committees.
I see.
Yes.
I don't know if I should be adding this under a resolution or a recommendation, but I'd like to add for the bike sharing to give authority for a pilot program and to give the manager some authority. That, what part would that be under?
As giving him the authority, do we have to do it through Rezo?
I know that I thought at our last meeting,
We'd given
we
direction.
authorized the Todd to move forward with engaging, I forget the name of the.
Lime.
And we had intended to have that on the agenda tonight. There's an issue that we still need to resolve in terms of locations at which these bikes are going to be from. But if you may be talking about something different. I'm not.
I think I'm talking about an offshoot of that, but it obviously follows in there where I've spoken to the gentleman at the company who would like to get some bikes on the streets in the summer in a smaller scale, kind of like a trial or a pilot. And then through that process, hopefully learn some things so that when we enter into a extended contract, we could then take into consideration some issues that may come up in the quieter time of the summer with less bikes.
So is this a competitor, or is
No.
this?
No, it's the same
So
company.
to pilot it?
We just put it as a
Basically a pilot.
discussion.
Discussion item?
Yes, add it as a discussion item. That's fine.
Okay.
I have an addition, actually,
Pilot.
it should probably be tacked on to 11A3, which is the discussion of the long-term strategy for beach renourishment.
I
Oh,
added,
you've already added it, okay, great.
so that is,
Yeah, this is in reference to the proposal that everyone received earlier today, and we'll
Can I put
review
it-
it under 11A3.
Thank you.
yes.
I would like to add.
Yes.
I'd like to put under a discussion item for the RFQ for the underground utilities, just to see where we are with that.
Underground utilities, you said?
Our RFQ for underground facilities. And I would also like to do one other discussion item, discussion on filling open director positions within the village.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Moss, I didn't. hear.
Discussion on filling open director positions within the village.
What's open? Which department is open?
I'll move it.
Do you move?
Second.
Please call the question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And now our first item on our agenda is a special presentation by the Miami-Dade School Board, School District Administration. Please come forward, Dr. Strickland, Dr. Payne, and Mr. Pace. And I believe that there are a couple of PowerPoint slides. And again, thank you all for your responsiveness.
Mayor and council and guests. Want to say thank you for being wonderful partners in the education of our students on the Key and throughout Miami-Dade County, because you support all the students in Miami-Dade County, and we appreciate your work over the years. I have been associated with Key Biscayne students since 1996, so I have a long history and I understand a lot of things that are going on, and we want to say thank you for the great work on behalf of the superintendent, Iraida Mendez-Cataya, and the entire school board for the great work, and Ms. Rojas, especially our board member for this district.
Thank you for having us here today. It's an honor to be here, and really wonderful to be on a program with young people that are exercising their civic duties. Just to give you an overview, a little bit about the magnet process. As you know, the MASS program, application to the MASS program is through the magnet application process. For specifically for Key Biscayne residents, there of course is the agreement about the Cambridge program, the Cambridge International, which is the middle years program. In the senior high, there's the Cambridge STEM program and the Cambridge Global Studies. You have a chart that was passed out to you. In just a minute, I'm going to go over the numbers on that. But the slides, just so you know, the slides are just a breakdown of this. The first slide is the middle years program. The second slide is the next one down, which is the Global Studies program, which is senior high. The next one, the STEM program, is also senior high because they make a choice between applying for the Global Studies or the STEM. And then the bottom is a compilation, which I'll get to in just a second. But as far as the Cambridge programs for Key Biscayne residents, in order to have priority seating for these programs, they have to meet the following conditions. They must submit an application during the application period each year, which is October 1st to January 15th. And they must meet the eligibility requirements, which I'll go through in just a second. They must provide two proofs of current address, two proofs of their current address residence, and that must be provided to the school site, and that must be provided before the January 15 deadline in order to receive the residence priority. And the priority is only for the Cambridge programs. It's not for the maritime programs. They can still apply for the maritime programs, but the priority for residency is only for the Cambridge programs. The sibling priority is not applicable across Cambridge to maritime. It's separate between the programs. And it's only applicable for younger siblings that are applying when an older sibling is already at the school and is at that school for at least one concurrent year for when the sibling comes in.
Can I ask a question on that? Given that the Global Studies and the STEM you apply to separately, does the sibling preference carry for, let's say someone applying for 6th grade has a sibling in the high school years?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, it does. Because the middle school only has the one, and when they get to 8th grade, then they choose which track they're going into. Or if they're applying for the entry point of 9th grade, then they're selecting at that point.
And at that point, is the sibling preference Global Studies or STEM specific or Cambridge overall?
Cambridge overall.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now I said I would get back to the eligibility requirements. Let me talk about middle school first. If the entry point is 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, they're applying for any of those three grades. The minimum is a 2.5 grade point average, and that is on each of the core academic areas, which is language arts, mathematics, science, social studies. For the previous school year and the first grading period for which they're applying. So for instance, this year, if they're applying for next year, they'd be looking at the grades for the first part of the year, as well as the previous year. They also have to have a 2.0 grade point average in conduct, and they have to have effort grades of a 2 or higher. They must have no more than 10 unexcused absences in the previous year and 5 unexcused within this school year that they're applying within. And the 8th graders applying must be prepared to be enrolled in physical science honors and Algebra 1 honors when they come into 8th grade. If they're coming in at the 8th grade level, they have to be prepared to apply for those because that's a requirement for the high school. And for the high school, again, 2.5 grade point average. in the same core academic areas, language arts, mathematics, science, social studies, for the previous year and the first grading period of the current year that they're within which they're applying. They have to have the minimum grade point average of a 2 point, the grade point average 2 point in conduct, as well as 2 or higher in their, it's the same thing. It's parallel. The same thing about the unexcused absences, 10 unexcused absences in the year before. But if they're coming in for 9th grade, during the 8th grade, they have to be enrolled and be completing their physical science honors and Algebra 1 honors. Those have to be taken before you come into 9th grade. So if they're applying to come in 9th grade, they're either taking it at Mast in 8th grade as they're going up into the senior high, or they will come in having taken it before they come in at 9th grade, if that's when their entry point is. If they're coming in as 10th graders, then that goes up 1 notch. They have to have completed honors biology and honors geometry. Any questions on the eligibility piece? Okay. So let me go to the chart for a second. Again, we're only looking at the middle years. Okay, it may be best. I brought one with me. Let's see here. Here, if you can, that doesn't show really well. Okay, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade.
Yes.
The seats available for each grade is actually 145 seats for each grade. Now, so for the first year, that's entry level, so no one's coming up from the previous grade, so there's 145. This year, there were 208 applications from the Key for those 145 seats. Of the 208, 193 were declared eligible, which means they went into the random selection process. 15 students, this thing just died. Forget that. 15 students, as you can see there, 15 students were ineligible for various reasons. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask, I see on your chart that you have that they didn't provide residence. Are those 7 included in the 15?
No, it's not.
Okay.
These are ones that were
Ineligible academically or conduct.
Correct. So then invited, of the 145 seats, that's the same 145 seats, 157 were actually invited to fill those 145 seats. But as different people declined those seats, it went down the list. So currently, right now, 12 people decided they did not want to go to Mast. They wanted to go somewhere else. And that could be a lot of different places. The 29 are currently on the waiting list for 6th grade. And 7 were people that did not provide the residency requirements, proof of residency, by the January 15th. We know they're in the pool of all the waiting lists for that. The district waiting list is much higher. There's also people that applied from off the Key that applied. It's a much longer list. Those students are actually sitting there because they never provide any proof of their residency.
And they're not among the 29 that are on our waiting list?
No, they're not. No, they're not. It's 29 is just for that. Yes, ma'am.
Just for clarification for people also, one of the things that wasn't understood clearly was the fact that once you meet those standards, any and all children are at the same level. So it's not as if kids that are doing better in school have a priority.
You're absolutely
That's correct.
And it's that way for all magnet programs, no matter what magnet school. Once they meet the eligibility requirement, it's a lottery. Everyone is the same.
They're leveled
in the lottery.
Okay.
Well, the only reason it wouldn't be a lottery is if fewer applicants than seats were applicable in a given year.
Correct. And that did happen in the early years of the program. Right. And you're going to see that on the chart when we get to senior high years. You're going to see in 11th to 12th grade, you're going to see lower numbers because the interest from Key residents was much lower at that time when the program was first starting out. But it's the same way if you look down to 7th grade and then 8th grade, the same thing. Now, I wanted to point out to you, as far as seats available, there are only 5 seats available this year in 7th grade because those students that were in 6th grade are moving up to 7th grade. So either there were a few that left or for whatever reason, that would be the difference.
But very few.
Very few, but they are filling it. And every seat in the middle school, and I'll get to senior high, I'm going to do them separately, but every seat in the middle school is given to a Key residence this year. Not one seat is off except if it's military or sibling. And there's very few of those, but by board rule, and by state law for military, we must accept military, and it's my understanding in the middle school grades, there's one military student, and there are some siblings. And you'll see those differences in just a second. I'll point them out.
So-
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Or whoever, yes, sir.
You go ahead.
My question is about the 12 in sixth grade who have already declined their acceptance. And this question is really for the 29 people who are waiting, to give them a little bit of visibility into the likelihood of them getting a call. Are those 12 from like the time period of they just didn't reply, or are you starting to get trickling in declines that we will expect to see the possibility of over the summer, or when school starts and they don't show up?
Currently, right now, all 145 seats have been accepted. To get to that 145, 157 invitations went out. When someone declines, it automatically goes down the list. Now, to answer your question, though, even though right now, at this moment, 145 have accepted and all seats are filled, there is movement that happens. And I'll give you, maybe I shouldn't mention other schools' names. If there's another school that also was on their list, because students can apply up to 5 schools, and maybe people had a preference for another school, and that they were on the waiting list for the other school right now. If it goes down the waiting list and they get an invitation from that other school, then they can then decline the mass seat and take the other school. And then that would mean the mass list would go down. And that movement happens throughout the summer, typically for all magnet schools. Even our the schools that are in most demand, I'm trying to be politically correct here, the schools that are in most demand, that does move. It does move for them in all their various strands. And we will have students accepted into some of those schools even in August. So that does happen.
And how deep into the school year do you keep the waiting list alive?
The waiting list goes for the first semester.
So the first 2 quarters?
Correct.
So till about January?
So if there's an opening, then the school can bring them in. Correct.
Mr. Dela Cruz?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So how many total seats, how many total students are there in 7th grade?
145.
And out of that 140 that the seats were not available, how many of those are Key Biscayne residents?
For the current population. See, I was prepared to do the application.
You don't have that information.
I don't have
Can
that.
you get that for us?
Sure, I can get that.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. And for each year, from
Sure,
7th
sure.
to 12th?
I can do that, absolutely.
Thank you.
If the answer to that question is that those seats were undersubscribed last year or previous years, that phenomenon has changed because the popularity of MAST has become more rooted.
I can tell you, what I can tell you is that, because I do remember this, not exact numbers, but I can tell you that for whatever difference between the 145 and the number of Key residents, the difference is only for military and for siblings. No one just from off the waiting list that it lives off the Key got a seat.
I understand. I'm
just wanted to be
curious
clear
to know
about
how many of the total students that are available are from Key Biscayne. And I understand the whole process. So I understand that they didn't apply before, and therefore, somebody else got the seat, and they're not going to give that seat until they finish. I understand all that.
Okay.
I'm just curious as to what
get that
the
for you.
statistics are.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
And Dr. Strickland,
Yes, ma'am.
we can raise the issue of proving residence to Key Biscayne. We're under the impression from neighbors and parents, and I believe you had an incident where there was someone used your address.
We had somebody try.
We would love to have the partnership to be strengthened in that area to help verify the residents.
And so, yes, we're concerned about that because we have residents who've made very conscious decisions to live in Key Biscayne, pay more in taxes, more in rent so that their kids can have, they made that choice. And there is what is perceived as gaming of the system, whether it's using a friend's address, using a false address, having one person rent an apartment and have 10 families use the same address, whether it is renting temporarily for 6 months, getting your first child, then moving off the Key forever and having all your children come.
Sibling priority, right.
So sibling priority. So we're concerned, just we just want it to be implemented in the way that it was meant, and I know you're
We do too.
concerned about that.
Absolutely. We love to engage further in that conversation and what steps we can take to assure that
Thank you.
the residency requirement is what you intended.
Thank you.
Are there any questions on the middle school? Yes.
Is that 145 a hard number? What was it last year? Because my understanding was it was one number and then it got a little bigger.
Yeah, it
and
did.
So can
And
you explain that to us?
We did that last year in 2 different grades. We did that. We took more people. There were a lot of people on the waiting list, and because at the upper grades there was some space as we were growing into the program. So now this year we have some classes that are a little bigger than they should. That's causing some logistical problems with the operations of the school, but we're working through that. Going forward, and as this program is completely fleshed out for all the years, that's not going to be possible because there are only so many seats in the school.
So the current 6th grade class is larger than the 145?
No, the current one is.
The current one is. So that's always been the number, 145?
145 is basically what they look
top
at.
end.
With give and take, like maybe 1 or 2 students a grade level or whatever. Basically, at middle school, it's 145, 145, 145 for 6, 7, 8. The senior high, it gets a little bigger because obviously we've got some students that may be applying from the K-8 that will want their entry point would be coming in at 9th grade. So then we're looking, I think it's about 165 for all 4 grades in the senior high. Because once you enter at that 9th grade, if that's an entry level of 165, then you've got to be able to continue that if they all stay. Sometimes there is attrition. Sometimes someone will leave. And then because in the case here, for 7th grade, we had 5 students leave and they went ahead and decided to fill them.
The 165 is for each program, the Global Studies and the STEM, or combined?
No, it's combined.
And then the other program that's not Key Biscayne preference, how many kids are max? How many are in those seats for 9th
In the
through 12th?
Maritime?
Yes.
The Maritime is roughly, it doesn't stay exactly, but it's roughly about 140 a grade. Their numbers total for that program is around 560, 65, something like that, for the total program,
4
9th,
years.
10th, 11th, 12th.
Got it.
Where yours, of course, is aiming towards the 1100 from the ISLA. Okay, and if you add up the 145, 140, some of you probably already done that. Okay, so it takes you.
We're 20.
No, but I said, it's give and take a one, because you might have a situation, for instance, I'll give you an example, and this happens in all of our magnet schools. Let's say that last child that you take, that 145th child, is actually a twin. We're required to take their twin. So there's a little bit of give and take in there. I mean, it's not a hard, fast. Children don't come in buckets of 145. You know, sometimes there's triplets, sometimes there's twins. There's various scenarios that would make that be a little different. But that's basically what the school is aiming at. That's how they build their schedule, to know that they have the right number of classes in each of the subject areas and each of the content areas to be able to, according to class size, be able to have enough spaces and seats in each of their electives as well as their core subjects. That's kind of how they build their schedule.
While we're on this 1095, I understand not accepting new students into 10th and 11th grade because it is not possible to complete their requirements.
Correct.
11th and 12th, sorry.
11th and 12th. 10th is possible. It's difficult for the child, but it is possible.
And you are taking them. But
Yes,
my
correct.
question is, has there been any conversations about looking at the attrition in those grades and that decrease in class size, and looking to possibly build that, like an average of those numbers into 9th and 10th grade, knowing that there will be some attrition and that you've built in this 5-seat cushion already?
Keep in mind that right now, if you look at our 11th and 12th graders, those were the grades that when they came in, it was not, the key residents were not as interested in this program. So it's not really reflective of what it would be or what the attrition rate would be. That's something we have to keep looking at, obviously. But in the other grades, they are moving for the most part. They're going up grade by grade, and that's happening. In your first 4 grades, it's right on. You just have a few seats open, and some of it is because, like last year in 7th grade, which would be this year's 8th grade, that was not a big of a class. Okay, it didn't make it. It wasn't as big. So you're going to see it. I think as you watch this the next few years, it's something that I know that we have had conversations about, those are things we watch in every school. But on the other hand, keep in mind also that if we take in and we make a commitment in 9th grade to 165, I've got to plan that they stay. Because if they don't stay, I can't plan that 15 or 20 are going to leave. And I should also tell you, and this is kind of on the side note, this is the first year that your Cambridge students have been able to take some of the Cambridge exams that have been honored by Cambridge, and your students are doing very well. Cambridge even came here and honored some of the math students at a big ceremony that happened across the district because of their achievement. So the product of what you're getting with the achievement in Cambridge is very high. And we're proud of that across the district, but Mast is part of that. So any question about the middle school? I'll go on to senior high because I don't want to take advantage of your time. Because I know
Senior high would be great.
Just last question. It's kind of deep background. Is our overall population, the whole census from Key Biscayne, now about what you would projected it would be 5 years ago?
I think you have more students than what we're expecting. You may remember that there's a clause in the ILA that says that if seats are not filled by Key Biscayne residents, then we could have students from the mainland side actually apply for those seats and get in. And in all honesty, I'll speak for myself. We were expecting to have 10 or 15 students per grade. We weren't expecting to have 29, 30 on a wait list from the Key. So I think the population, there was an increase, an uptick in the population for Key Biscayne residency, and that kind of surprised us. At the same time, we also have to have conversations with all the parents that applied that do not live on the Key, that applied and there's no chance of them getting in. They're concerned, why was it even an option for us to put down and apply for? Because we're not getting in. If only the Key residents are getting in year after year, if that's what's going to be happening. So those are conversations that we're having too, with regards to making sure, and on our application, if you've looked at our application before, it does say there on there plain on the online as well as the written ones that these seats are priority for Key Biscayne residents first. It says that, but we have to explain to our customers on the other side what that means. We have over a 700 application waiting list for 6th grade alone from off the Key.
We'll continue this conversation.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask you one other question? Sure. Going back to the proof of residency, do they only have to do that the first time they enter your school, and then are they considered in for the length of the time? And was that addressed in your agreement?
I think we need to revisit that.
I think that's something that we have to discuss.
Okay.
On the verification?
Sure.
Because I know people want to know this. What is the procedure when you discover that someone is there who should not be, or someone who has falsely claimed a residence on Key Biscayne? What happens?
How often does that happen
to those students?
I'm not sure.
Well, I think, Mr. Rafa, would you like to answer that? Mr. Rafa's
You almost got away.
That's the reason I turn to my colleagues. I don't handle that.
Finding individuals who don't live.
I can only speak for ours. Can you please come to the
It's all the same.
Sylvia Trappa, 650 Ocean Drive and 150 West McIntyre, my second home. I can only speak for what happens at our school and the way it works a little bit different because we are not a magnet. Our school is open to everyone that lives on Key Biscayne. We have a wonderful registrar in our school who's been living on Key Biscayne very long and knows all the addresses on Key Biscayne. So she does know when someone is trying to put a business address or something of that nature as their home. We also hire someone twice a week to go out if we have any questions on any addresses that we feel the documentation wasn't proper or we have a question about it. We do send someone out to visit homes. We have done a better job. That's why when I see these articles in the newspaper, concerned moms, I wish the concerned moms will come and see me and give me whatever information that they have. Because as far as I'm concerned, we are doing a good job. We did a campaign for the last 3 years. We did not do it this year, where we had everybody resubmit the proof of address, either a deed, a rent, and then the FP&L, whatever the two forms of identification that they lived on the Key. That worked very well. However, I do have to say that there are some families that do split time because they have divorced parents, and someone lives in Brickell, someone lives in Key Biscayne, and they have every right to go visit their parent during the week and come back. So I don't know who these people are that they're talking about. You need to tell me, they need to tell me, because we would do our due diligence if we need to do that.
And so what happens when you find?
When we do find out, we bring the child in, depending on the time of the year. If we find out right away, we would tell the children they need to attend their school. If we are way into the year, which sometimes happens, we find out maybe in April when we actually require those documents again. At the end of that year, we will tell the student that if they're not living here, they would need to attend their home school.
And what Councilmember De La Cruz asked, how often does that happen?
Well, we're checking all the time.
How many times do you find somebody per year on
I
average?
would say that we haven't found that. As a matter of fact, this year maybe only 2.
Okay.
But in years past, we maybe would have found maybe 1 or 2 or 3. Depends. Sometimes we find if we get a check for pictures and we see a strange address or something like that, we'll find out what's going on. We do a lot of legwork on this because I know this is an issue. That's why I want to make it very clear. If someone knows something, you need to let us know. Now, we do have people that will fill a bona fide address form that says that they are allowing family to live with them. Like sometimes a sister will be living with her sister and her husband because she recently got divorced, and they are staying there, and there's a room for the kids and everything, and we check everything out. So that is someone that's written. Now, if in a year from now, she or 2, she's moved off the key or he's moved off the key, that's why we have to ask for it periodically. But we are doing our due diligence, and that's why, when people say, oh, when you work on the key, you can bring your children, that doesn't exist anymore. I don't know if you have any other questions on that?
No, and thank you very, very much. I do think there's a slightly different challenge with the Magnet and the Mast Academy, and you're doing a great job. We need to kind of learn the mechanics of the Mast Academy Magnet program because we don't necessarily have that one-on-one with the enrollment. It's a little more anonymous.
Let me add. So, Mast Academy, when we speak about Mast Academy and those students that we find are not living in the community, many times we find that because we send mailings home, the mailings are returned, and that's when the registrar, the principal, and the assistant principals in the school verify residency with 2 pieces of documentation, an FP&L bill, the bottom portion that shows the address, and deed or lease that shows that they live where they say they live. And the school will make sure that if they don't bring those documents in, they are withdrawn.
But don't you ask for those before?
Yes, sir, when they enter the school, but we're speaking of the students who are already there. Because when a parent registered a student in first enrollment in 6th grade or 9th grade or whichever grade, they bring in those documents as part of the routine to do that. But what happens is, during the school year, I think we get this opportunity to find out if there's some students in that are saying, oh, I live here, but I don't live here. And when we do that, then we send someone, the school checks it and verify that they live where they say they live.
Okay, so you check when they first apply to the school, and you don't check every year thereafter?
No.
Not yet.
Okay, well, that's
not yet. However,
Not yet.
there is a plan
Not
that's
yet.
being discussed,
Yep.
and that will possibly be part of that plan. But I think we have to get there, and we're working on it. It's a
because
work in progress.
people move.
Yeah, they do. Right. Absolutely.
Well, and people lease for 3 months.
Yeah. There's some unique
they're done.
situations
Yes.
that we have to address, and we're looking at some options of how to address that. And I think that's where we are, and we'll come back to you and share what we're doing and how we're going to do it. Okay.
Thank you.
And Dr. Payne, I know that the village manager is working with ORIDA on this issue, and I think I can be bold enough to speak for all of us that you have the village's support for whatever we can do to help the school district to enforce this residency requirement.
Very appreciated. Okay. We'll be talking. All right.
Thank you.
There's one other question about the wait list that I just need to understand, which is I've been told that when you're on this wait list, you can't actually know exactly where you are on the wait list. And what is the philosophy behind that?
We, more than a decade ago, back when we had a different system and the wait lists were there, we did provide more exact information on that. We discovered that it was more confusing for parents for various reasons. For instance, and keep in mind that MAST is treated the same way as all the other magnet schools. So I'll have a magnet school in particular, in my mind, that has like 10 magnet strands in the school. And then that parent would have been told at that time, in this magnet strand, you're number 50 on the waiting list. And their neighbor is in a different strand at the same school on the waiting list and happens to be number 83. And then that child gets in because the list is specific for the program, not for the school. And then it causes all kinds of confusion. That's one thing. Another thing is, if at any point military moves into the space, into the area, and they want a seat in the school, and that seat is available because one just came open, then I have to, by law, give it to military, which would have bumped the waiting list down. And that's very confusing to parents. So what our policy has been is to give them some idea and to say, where you're very close, you are hundreds away, which is not happening with you guys. But that's what we've done with all the other magnet schools for the last, probably since about 2006, and that has worked pretty well. This year, with this group of parents, that has gotten the conversation going again. It's something that we're going to look at for the summer. But whatever the policy is, applies to all the magnet schools. Not one particular gets numbers and another one doesn't because of the maritime and everything else. We treat them all the same.
And there's no way to mix that up. That would be more of a problem for you from a global standpoint.
And remember that parents are applying to this school. It's one of their 5, and they may or may not live here, and that's very confusing to them why they might get a number for this school and not their other 4 selections. So that's we have found that it's been more confusing, but it's something that we're going to revisit and talk about this summer. It's already on our agenda list to talk about. It has not been an issue as much until this year, and a lot of it is because of MAST.
So with the list of 25, are you giving any kind, or 29, sorry, are you giving any visibility into
kind of where they are?
Yeah, look for another option.
Yeah. And I can tell you that our staff has probably talked to the 29, we probably talked to at least 21 of them.
Okay.
Some of them are not calling. Some people are a little more active than others on the issue.
I imagine our residents.
And there's some of them that are extremely active, and that's okay. That's okay.
They're very invested in their children, of course.
We want parents to be very active in their child's education. And sometimes parents do things that may not be the way you or I would do it, but they're doing what they need to do they think they need to do for their child, and we get that. So if they get upset, it's okay. You listen, you talk to them, you tell them what their policies are, you stay calm, you don't take it personally because they've just said some things to you that you might not like. It's okay. We just talk through it. And our staff discusses that monthly, just to make sure you don't take it personally. Just keep answering their questions, explain the process and where they are.
One quick question. Out of the 29 that are on the wait list, do you know if any of them decided to go somewhere else?
I don't know that.
We will never know.
It would only
that, right?
know that if it went down the list and they declined, which is what happened with the 12.
I'm sure there may be some of those 29 that decided they got into another school or whatever.
They could have gotten one of their other selections.
Okay.
Dr. Strickland,
Yes,
is there any way of slightly increasing the classes?
If you do that, it causes a domino effect, and there's not capacity in the school to do that. If the school would have to add additional classrooms, they're at capacity, their utilization of the space. So they would something would have to give somehow to be able to do that. And keep in mind that if we increase any one class, that class is going to go up the other grades. So you've just increased the school in that fashion across the board. It's not just for one group. So unless there's a way to identify additional classrooms, and I know that the school in the past have converted rooms like teacher planning rooms into classrooms, et cetera, unless there's additional instructional spaces, it's very difficult to entertain that.
Fair enough. We may have to look at some point
Yes, sir.
for additional.
No, absolutely.
Well, I think it might also be good for our community if, at the beginning of the magnet program, if we could have someone from your office come and maybe give a presentation on some of the other options also available.
Absolutely. We do that across the district. Not a problem. You ask, Bill.
Okay.
You ask about increasing the number. So currently, our Capitol office
Yes.
is looking at some spaces at Mass that they can convert to classrooms so that we'll have more space. And that is under discussion as we speak.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, you have in front of you the senior high. I broke it down into the slides. It's a little more, it's harder to see the total picture in the senior high because it's on two different slides.
Yes.
But if you have specific questions about those two.
Conchita? It's picking up on the mic.
Oh.
Yes.
You do have specific questions about either the global studies or the STEM. Otherwise, I'll go to the last slide, which gives you some totals.
Okay.
Was that?
Yes, that's fine.
I don't want to overstay my welcome here. Okay, on this one. So you can see that what we had predicted for this year was across all grades, 210 actual seats available. We had 466 total applications from key residents. Of that 466, 98 of them were not eligible for whatever reason. Sometimes they didn't take the eligible one, sometimes, for whatever reason, the GPA, et cetera. 23 from all grades, 23 declined when they were given an acceptance into the school. They declined and are going somewhere else, their choice. 113 of all grades, currently 113 are on the waiting list for various grades. 22 people did not provide the residency documentation in time. And that brings you up to the 256 that currently don't have a seat for all those various reasons. So you add the 256 to the total seats of 210, that's the 466. Every seat that was open in Cambridge this year, unless there was a military or sibling issue, went to Key Biscayne residents.
Terrific. Thank you for this breakdown.
And this PowerPoint also is being left on the site should you need it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, we thank you for your attentiveness, and we are very appreciative.
Thank you.
And you're always welcome. Come to our meetings every other Tuesday.
Definitely have questions for you.
I think,
I'm glad you got to see some of our future Mast Academy. It was, yeah.
If I could leave these guys with the thought for follow-up. I think that we have come to realize that we are experiencing the fruits of success. And there's a downside to that. And I think we need to talk about how to put a floor under that downside and fix it. But we can't fix it by overburdening what exists at the school. We set this up with a certain parameter. And I think, there's been some flexibility. Those parameters have shifted a little bit, but they're not endless.
But Frank, I do think, and I thank you because I think that they are reviewing the footprint of the school to see if there's any way of being a little more creative, knowing that there is a finite number of students that you will be able to have. Maybe we're not quite there, maybe we are, but I appreciate you looking into it. We need to.
And we will forward to you the data that was requested.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Next item on the mayor is the consent agenda.
Moved.
Second? Please call the question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item.
Hold on just a second. I need to know who voted and who didn't.
We all voted.
We all voted.
Well, I had two absent.
Brett, right.
Right.
And folks, at the suggestion of Councilmember Gross, I've tried to allocate time to the different items. We have possibly a maximum of 20 minutes on our next public hearing item.
Okay, the next item is Building, Zoning, and Planning, public hearing number SP-26. Applicant, the village manager, location 530 Crandon Boulevard, request approval of a site plan for a park. All those witnesses giving testimony in this hearing need to be sworn in. Please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Weren't we going to postpone this?
Not as far as I know. It's still on the agenda. Yes.
Do you want me?
It's on the agenda because it had to be.
Yeah.
In other words, it's here because we required that it be here on a specific date, time certain, date certain. So it may have been that somebody thought it would not be going forward, but it's just here because of process.
So I've been talking to our design consultant and Todd as well. We think that maybe tonight we should, I think they want to present those options that they looked at, that they were requested to come back with. But what I feel that's still missing is, and maybe that should be a quick discussion for tonight, is the use that we see, what the programming will be used on the site. And the reason to do that is I believe that it'll clarify a lot for our design consultant to go back and design the park the way that it should be designed. I think with the options that he's going to present were some design elements that were given him, but if flexibility is a high priority of use, what he may present may not have that. And if we continue to give him elements of design instead of this is what the purpose and the use we want to use, he may just continue going into circles until we can actually make a decision. So I believe that he's planning on giving a short presentation tonight of the options, and maybe that we could give him one more feedback of how do we see the use of this park for our community, the best use, and let him come back in the next meeting and let's approve this thing. That was what I was thinking of doing, and keeping it as short as possible.
Thank you. I do have to say that we're going back, 360 to where we started, and that was with public participation at discussion meetings where our residents and the council weighed in as to the uses. So we're back right where we started, where the conceptual drawing started, and just so that I thank all the residents that came for many meetings to weigh in. I thank for the different renderings we've had. We're just back where we started.
And further that, I think that several, if not most of the alternatives that are in our package had to do with putting the pump station and or the exercise equipment in 530. And I think we are of the mind, our consensus is that neither of those should be there, and they should be in the Village Green. So I think it doesn't serve any purpose to present those options tonight, since we've already moved away from that.
Well, remember, we asked him to put these options in.
Yes, we did.
And so I think it behooves us to see what he did and then maybe have that discussion briefly after.
Can I please have a motion from council to open this discussion? We did.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Good evening. Gianno Fiori with Cavenger Donner Associates. I promise I'll make this really short. We were at this site plan back in March, which had essentially an open, flexible area with the introduction of a pump track. And then we also provided a sort of rendering of what that would look like with an event using the Village Green as well as McIntyre and a stage on site. We talked about the introduction of a pump track into the project, as well as some residents requested us incorporate some exercise equipment that they visited elsewhere in the county. In addition to that, the direction of council was to explore the stepped grass seating option that was modeled after a precedent from Swarthmore College. So we were challenged to look at two groups of exercises. The first was to explore optional locations in the Village Green to locate the exercise stations and the pump track. as well as to look at 4 different options for the design of 530, incorporating this idea of the step seating. One was only the step seating with an open lawn area, a step seating with the pump track, a step seating with the exercise equipment, and all 3 components, the step seating, the exercise equipment, and the pump track. And those 4 options were there to see what could fit and what could not fit. Part of the challenge was to try to maximize as much of the lawn area as possible, to shift the Badia Plaza further south, and to show a footprint for a sort of future art piece, if we may. So we visited the Village Green. We walked it with staff, and we identified 2 locations, one on the northwest corner, one on the southwest corner. So we'll identify those very quickly. On the northwest corner, it's right next to the access to the dog park. It's offsetted from the existing sports field. We could fit a small pump track there, as well as a dozen exercise equipment. The challenge here with the exercise equipment is to fit approximately about a dozen to be able to meet that social aspect that a lot of residents were asking for. In addition to that, we also looked at the southwest corner right off of the restrooms that are there, between the restrooms and the existing mahogany tree in the area shown in blue. In there, we could also fit a little bit larger pump track, as well as a dozen exercise stations. The only issue is that the restroom finished floor elevation is a little bit higher. So in order to not encroach on the field or encroach on the trees, we have to put a retaining wall. So it makes the cost a little bit more expensive. We also looked at the option of maybe daisy chaining the exercise equipment along the existing paths, so that an existing condition such as what you have on the left could have sort of an exercise station as we show it on the right. We looked at costs. Roughly, they're all about the $80,000 to $85,000 mark. The most expensive portion is locating the exercise station near the restroom because of having to do the retaining wall improvements, or locating it in the daisy chain along the walkways because of all the curbing and improvements that we have to do there. So that's looking at the test fit option within the Village Green. The 4 options for the 530, the first was to look at a lawn area as well as the step seating. We were able to, the goal was to not go too high with the step seating. So we looked at a 2-foot rise. We remind you that every component of a public park needs to be ADA accessible. Hence why we actually spend a lot of space trying to get the ADA accessibility to work and the circulation to work. So what you have is the step seating on the east side, fronting Crandon, and then on the west side, fronting the community center. Then you have sort of a lawn area, which we would envision it to have some tree coverage. The second option was to look at a pump track. We could nestle the pump track where the lawn area would have been. The step seating essentially stays the same for this option. And it's very similar for the next option with the exercise equipment. We're able to fit 12 exercise equipments in there with that step seating piece. The fourth option, which was to include all components in 530, was a little bit more challenging, but we were able to sort of make it fit as long as we reduced the exercise equipment by 1 element. So instead of 12, we have 11. And that's in the area that's all the colored portion right around here. We envision, so you would ramp up to this level. You would have the step seating here, the pump track in this area. You'd have to have a retaining wall here, and then an access point. So instead of having the art piece along Crandon, we created a datum line that connected the step seating with the entrance to Village Hall to create this sort of a civic datum line so that then the art piece could be there. When we look at cost, the cost increases significantly with the addition of each one of the different elements from 634,000 up to 846. So you're looking almost at a difference of almost $200,000, depending on the options that you want. In addition to that, we also met with staff to find out exactly what kind of events and uses the staff envisions to happen on 530. Some of the recurring events are farmers markets that could occupy between 15 and 20 vendors. They also thought that it would be appropriate to have some overflow from the community centers, such as yoga and Pilates, as well as some summer camp equipment and some art and music programs, as well as some temporary infrastructure to accommodate maybe some field games such as volleyball, foot volley, croquet, or a pop-up mini golf, as well as some arts in the park. In terms of events, which are not your recurring ones, but they happen more on a seasonal level, there's a Winterfest, which to keep the trucks off of the artificial grass surface, it was suggested to move it to 5:30, as well as Movies on the Green, which currently is once a month for 4 months. But because of the need to have to upgrade the Village Green, that gets interrupted. So this would, housing it at 5:30 would provide a greater frequency. And there's an anticipation of having up to 200 attendees with a 30 by 30 screen, as well as a concert series in the lawn, which could accommodate up to 200 people per show. There's also a Rib-Off, a Rotary Arts Festival, a KB Flea, which is an event similar to the Miami Flea, as well as a PAM Inside Out event. So all these events require space. So when we have to mitigate all these different uses together with the different components for the park, our design recommendation to you is to move and locate the exercise equipment and the pump track at the Village Green, and to not implement the step seating within 5:30 because it occupies so much of the lawn area that then it cripples and handicaps the ability to maximize the opportunities for all of these different events that staff has anticipated that they would like to use the park for. And in finalization, I believe that there was a memo that was sent, or an email that was sent out by Councilmember Moss to the different staff, to the different council members, to sort of frame the design brief for the project with these ideas of the park wanting to be beautiful, for it to be functional, and for it to have meaning. So with there, I'll leave it up for discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very, very helpful. I now would like to open this item up for public hearing. It is a zoning hearing.
I don't have any speakers signed up, Mayor.
Would anyone like to speak to this item? I'll close the public comments and council members.
Can we have Todd come up and give us his thoughts on the use of the park and what he needed for, and because he's the one that's going to be staffing this mostly, it sounds like.
Can I add one thing before Todd says anything?
Yes.
I think, first of all, to make this simpler and clearer, we should separate the idea of the pump track, the exercise equipment, completely from this project now. That will be a completely separate thing, and we should take it out of any decision-making here, and we're not going to have it. And
Not a motion.
yeah, okay, that's number one.
Let's make it a motion.
Well, guys, let's have him finish the statement, please.
It's now somewhere else. We don't need to think about that. I think we have consensus up here that we'll put it somewhere else. What we don't have consensus yet, which I would like to have that tonight for our designers, is the amphitheater seating. Do we really need this element in there, or are we looking for a more flexible space? Because I think it does hinder the possibility of having flexible space there. And the thing that the reason why I approached, or we actually, me and Gary, when we had our Sunshine meeting, we spoke with Todd. We said, okay, one of the ideas of why at first I brought the idea of the pump track was, if you put a park out there, I don't want it just to be a park. I want it to attract people there. And I think all of you understand that as well, that if we have a park, it should be attracting people there. So if we don't have the element of the exercise equipment, we don't have the element of a pump track, whatever, the water park at one point, we had all these different items to attract people. Then we went to Todd and said, look, actually Todd brought it up and said, we need to do it through programming. Now that means the community center and the Parks and Recreation needs to put activities there to attract people. So we asked him to come up with a list of these items, and maybe council members have other input there that we can put there, and then we can put that back to our designers and see what he can come up with.
So Brett, one of the things that I started, and I think this item came for second reading in November. It was your first meeting, and you said, I'm so very close. Give me until the first of the year, and I'll be done. Just humor me, okay? We're so close. And so we have for 5 months.
Yes.
Okay? But it's been a very productive process, because we're reliving and you're understanding, and we're going through the process of what was done before, which is helpful in making the right decision. Sure. I totally get that. Sure. But and Todd, the uses are established, mm-hmm. and they haven't changed. And in fact, the uses that he identifies was the uses that were identified when we created this village civic area, and the idea of closing the roads and having programming and having the overspill. At the time, we had a village green. And so people actually used to go to the village green and use it for, park uses and relax and picnic and throw a Frisbee. And they don't do that anymore. So when we had the public here, one of the things, there were certain priorities. One, it is the entry. It is the gateway to our civic center. It has to be beautiful. It has to be elegant. It needs to make a statement. But two, resoundingly, we don't have a village green anymore. Can we please have a passive place or a semi-passive place where we can, throw a Frisbee, where we can, play around, play tag, and we can picnic, and we can just convene. And the other element, which Frank certainly, we were all contacted, but Frank is champion, is the idea of having concerts, events. At one point, we had a band shell, and that's because it was such an important component for this community. So these things, there was a process. That's why those things. Now we've removed the band shell because, and I think it's practically speaking, you can put it in and out, and it's not aesthetically pleasing, and I get that. But we shouldn't forget that that was a priority for our community. So I'm a little frustrated because I think Frank championed the seating. I did too. But it was because we had the institutional knowledge of that being such a critical part of the use based on what our residents wanted.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. You were first.
Yeah. With all due respect, I recognize, and your vision is very important, but I think that we're on the right track with what Brad is doing, and I think we should continue it. And I think we should do it the right way, because this park is going to be there for many, many, many years. And if it takes another 3 months, then so be it. Whatever we've done in the past, we've made a lot of mistakes. Let's not make more mistakes by coming to a conclusion just because we have to. I think that what Brett is doing right now is absolutely essential. I have some ideas. Gary's got some ideas. We all have some ideas. Maybe we'll have a sunshine meeting or whatever. But let's do this right, and let's not keep giving wrong signals to our designer, because that, you know, we also have to keep in mind how much is this all costing us in terms of, you know, design work. Every time that he has to go back and redesign, it's, you know, I'm sure he's billing us for it. He's not doing it out of the goodness of his heart. So let's continue with, my view is we continue with what Brett's doing. He's taking the lead on this. Let's give him the opportunity to do it. Let him keep talking with Todd and with the manager and with everybody else. If we have some suggestions, we'll have a sunshine meeting with him, and then come when we're ready to make this decision. That's, you know, there's no need to hurry this.
With all due respect, I was giving historical perspective in the fact that we had, you know, dozens, 60 people show up. It was a process. It's not my view. It's not what I want. It is, I was just trying to give a historical perspective of the process we had and the whys. And it's, I respect what you're doing. I am not trying to quash what you're doing. I'm just trying to give context into what the process is like, and that we do involve our community, and it is a community park, and there are community uses. So for that, please, Allison.
I just want to ask if you feel, given that we're at a point where we know that the residents of the village want this park to be like the Village Green, right? The place where people used to go where you could throw a Frisbee, that we did remove this permanent band shell structure so as to free up space. The current plans that we have today, to me, look like a small green space and a permanent amphitheater. Beautiful as I'm sure it is, I wish we had an elevation from the ground of the backside of the step seating. Because what I imagine, and perhaps I'm wrong, but what I imagine is that we've basically constructed a wall straight down the middle of this space, that we removed the band shell to make it flexible, to make it multi-purpose, and we now have an absolutely beautiful amphitheater that, if we had all the space in the world, I would love for Key Biscayne to have. But that the current plans that we have to look at today, every one of them has divided this with the Great Wall of Key Biscayne right in the middle. And that concerns me.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Couple points. We do need to see an elevation, because the whole premise in introducing this was that we thought it was a fabulous design feature, but if it was so disruptive to the overall space, or if it created a visual barrier, then it possibly just wouldn't work. It wouldn't be worth the price of having an excellent design feature. That's number one. Number two, I think we're at option one, but I think the variable is seating or no seating. And I want to re-invite everybody's aesthetic assessment of whether the seating component, assuming it's not of such looming verticality that it just doesn't work, the point that we just addressed, Allison's point, whether it's so special that the trade-off for just open flex space for all of this and other programming and everything that we'll ever conceive isn't worth the trade-off, because the sacrifices of something so unusual, so special. And I think we need your advice on that.
Well, and I would propose that if that's the way we want to go, that we consider even a permanent stage and have, you know, some of the performing arts classes at the community center could maybe use the outdoor space and use it more often. That if I feel if you're going to do it, we should do it right.
On that, maybe, I'd say. My prejudgment is that I thought that having a permanent stage was the most dispensable feature, because it's the easiest thing to replicate if, as, and when you need it. So I would rather opt for, if this really does work vertically and visually and functionally and space-wise, I think I've been to the one that, you know, we used as the model. It's really great. So I would be less inclined to put back the stage and more inclined to think very critically about whether this is a nice idea or it just doesn't work. Last point, and then I'll shut up. We haven't built this yet. It's been a process. It's been a while. It takes a while. We're all very creative, as our new building planning and zoning director is probably discerning. We have lots of opinions. And by the way, just because it's in Muni code, we don't necessarily like it. We like to do it our own way. We had other ideas. We haven't built this thing yet. There was an idea of putting a library on this site. So it's dangerous to reintroduce historical perspectives when it opens up a whole other discussion about completely disparate uses. But we have a decision still ahead of us, and that was one of the other options, as long as we're getting historical.
Yes.
I think that at this point, in order to move forward with something, the more we design this in a way that is a nice open space park that's usable for lots of different things, the faster we can actually end up with something there. But it also does something else. If we end up with a nice open space usable park, we haven't really eliminated our ability to change it in the future if we find some other purpose that's more compelling to use part of it or even all of it for. So eliminating permanency at this point, to me, is very important. As far as steps or seating or whatever, all I can tell you is I spent a lot of time in North Carolina in the summer, and all summer long, there are gorgeous parks all over the place, by rivers, by the mountainside, and people come and spread their blankets and bring their lawn chairs and have incredible concerts every Friday night and a lot of Saturday nights, and there are not hundreds, there are thousands of people at some of them. So if we have events that people that live in Key Biscayne want to come to, they will come to them, and they will sit outside and sit on whatever they want, including nothing but the grass. So flexibility, to me, at this point, is the most important thing we can do, and flexibility depends on having this very minimalistically designed for any one specific thing. Performances, every one of these performances that I'm talking about, none of these parks have a permanent stage or an amphitheater. They're all portable stages, and they roll them in and they roll them out. And when they're not being used for a program or a concert, they're gone, and then the park is much more open space. So I think we should just move on and make this a nice, beautiful park that gives us the flexibility that we can use it for anything we want to use it for with very little trouble, and then maintain our options to be open in the future. That's my view.
I agree with what you're saying, and I see this park, given the time that I've been up here, almost possibly as a two-step process. And the more we put on it, that piece of land, the more resistant I felt myself being about what we were doing. And my understanding is this amphitheater, the actual size of it probably wouldn't even accommodate the events that we have currently with the movie nights and things like that. So it's too small of a space to accommodate the people that would be coming to these events. And if we had a more open structure, I think that would be good. The other thing I would say is I am not sold necessarily on putting a pump track and or fitness equipment on the Village of Green immediately, especially given the concerns of residents for the quantity of natural grass. These playing fields aren't going to cover even the majority of the Village Green, but if we start adding pump tracks and exercise equipment quickly, we could end up in a situation where it does just feel like a playground, the entire field. And so I think that's something important to consider. I actually liked the very first option you gave us, not tonight, but before, where we had the pump track in the background, which doesn't need to be there or could be there, but it didn't eliminate anything, and I thought people could actually sit on it. And maybe we don't even put a pump track, but I do think it would be nice to move forward with a design sooner rather than later to give our residents something to do in this space.
Mm-hmm.
How many seats did you get out of that amphitheater? Did you project?
Roughly 120. So it's on the low side of your capacity for what you envision for your movie nights and your larger events. Just a couple points of clarification. With regards to the design options, the stage was always intended to be a temporary, not permanent. In terms of the maximum height, we're looking at an elevation of 4.5 feet. In order to be able to accommodate the 4.5-foot height and meet all the ADA requirements, we actually reduce the overall flexible lawn area to less than half of what you have today. So I think that the discussion boils down to what types of uses you envision to actually happen in the park, and if those uses trump this desire for the amphitheater. Because if that is the decision, then I would have to recommend against the amphitheater, because then you minimize the flexibility and the open space enough that you can't accommodate a lot of those uses.
You've already said that. We got it.
Okay.
And the flexibility also allows you to put all your winter stuff without a problem, right, Todd?
The Winterfest?
Yes. Because that's an issue. We can't put the Winterfest on artificial turf. So.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like to me, and that's what I think too. Flexibility of the space is important, and I don't know if everybody agrees on council on that side, but it sounds like there are many of us that would like to see this being used many different ways.
Yeah,
and keeping it simple as possible, but also beautiful, and also creating that meaning in there, but using the program to attract people to come Friday nights, on Saturday nights, movie nights, festivals, events in that area. And if we need to make some type of direction for him, or this will continue to spin if we're going to give him 6 different more options to go back, looking at almost all of these options, for me, it didn't seem to work for what I thought it would be, because I was thinking of flexibility, and now we have an amphitheater in the middle. And I understand it's the Swarthmore College image that you guys have, but I don't think that 4 of these tiers is going to recreate that feeling and that experience that we have in that image. So I'm not really bought on that item for me right now.
I have a motion.
Sure.
Why don't we adopt option 1 without the amphitheater, unless you want to build a library on this site and reserve it for that purpose, and then you'll landscape it and come back to us with what you think it's going to look like at the end. But it's going to be basically that option 1.
What is option 1 has the tiered?
Without the
Can you show option 1, please?
That is option. That is option 1.
But the trees.
The previous option.
Number 1.
What's the previous option without
previous,
there?
from the previous meeting, the first one that you put up.
Yep.
100 years.
Exactly.
If we do that one, we just take out
One we started with.
the pump track.
Yes.
That,
And you
without
take
the
out
pump
the
track.
pump track.
Take out the bump track.
And move the Badia fountain to the.
south.
Plaza.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready to vote on that. I mean, if you
Do I
want.
have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
You can second it.
Katie seconding it. Madam Clerk, please call the question. Roll
Do
call.
you have the right direction?
So the direction is to go with this design, shift the Badia Plaza down to the corner, eliminate the pump track that we're showing, and landscape it so that it's beautiful and flexible.
Yes.
Do you remember the price of this? Because I know it was also the least expensive.
It's roughly around $650,000.
I remember.
Okay.
Including the pump,
Can we?
including the
There's
pump.
one more
Including
thing
the
I
pump
wanna
track,
throw
so
out.
it'll be.
There's
Can
one
I
more
ask
thing.
also, can we add to this a request for something, we had talked about it being, showing some type of historic monument or something? Can we at the very least, maybe not ask you to design that, but to put a space somewhere in there where at a later date?
Or don't you think we have that ability?
It's
'Cause
flexible.
all-
It's flexible.
we do.
Yes,
We
it's
do.
flexible.
So let's
Can I
not.
just say, I don't want to forget it.
Either that, or we could actually design the edge of the park so that it has a historical narrative to it, or a sort of narrative that could speak
Let's
to
leave
that.
it like it is for now.
There's a motion on the table.
Gary, you wanted to
Yeah.
speak to that, and then we'll call the
There's
question.
one more idea, just a very quick consensus, yes or no.
A roller rink.
When Brett and I were having our sunshine meeting and during the tour, we've been talking about seating. Brett came up with what I thought was an incredible idea, which was building a very nice decorative, like 2
Low
foot
wall?
high wall around the boundaries of the park, which would do a lot of different things. First of all, define it as a park, be very nice and pretty as a decorative wall, but you could sit on it all the way around, and people would. And they'd sit there and they'd talk, and I just think it was a fabulous idea. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you.
I like
Well,
that
only-
it slows down children and keeps balls in.
Also, remember though, we were going to use it to open up and close those streets at some times, and having the continuation of
Wouldn't
that.
have to put it on that side.
Yeah, my idea was actually along Crandon, to have a low wall there. People could sit on the sidewalk side, you can sit on the park side, and it could diminish as it comes around that curve. Now, I have to tell you that looking at this plan, there are things missing. We are missing seating for bench seating around the park.
Yes.
Lighting, I don't know what type of lighting we're going to be looking at, trash cans, all types of stuff that are park elements that we need to put in there, because if it's just a piece of green space, it won't have it there. So I would try to implement that. And I don't know if we can make amendment to the motion or add something to the motion.
A friendly amendment?
Friendly amendment. I don't know if it's
Do I
friendly
have a second
amendment,
on a
but-
friendly amendment?
Second.
Don't know what the
What's the
friendly
friendly
amendment is
amendment?
yet.
Hold on, yeah, I just want.
I thought Frank had made a motion.
Yes.
To do option one.
without the
pump track.
And moving the Bedia
The Badia Plaza with now Brett's and Gary's friendly amendment of a low wall on the Crandon side with park elements such as park benches, water
Lighting,
fountain,
lighting,
garbage,
water
and
fountain,
lighting.
garbage. And would you guys be interested in naming the park? Maybe
Not right
incorporate-
now. Oh, for the love of God.
Let's vote on this.
Okay, all right. That'll throw a wrench in the.
Oh, come on.
Go get something to eat.
Okay. Do I have a second on that friendly amendment?
In the friendly amendment, did you incorporate the historical items in that friendly amendment?
That was place marker and
Okay.
No,
we don't have, no, a place marker to do it later. It's
Just going to
flexible.
remember not to forget that.
Correct.
we're not going to forget it.
All right.
The friendly amendment doesn't need a motion. It's just a friendly amendment to the.
Right.
As long
So,
as I accept it, which I do.
Right, so it's.
Roll call,
option-
please.
Okay. Mayor Lindsay,
yes.
Councilmember McCormick,
Yes.
Councilmember Moss,
Yes.
Councilmember Petros,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kaplan,
Yes.
Councilmember De La Cruz.
Yes.
Councilmember Gross.
Yes.
Site plan is approved as amended.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can I make one small comment to our manager?
Councilmember Kelly will be very happy.
Is there any reason why we still have the fence there? And can we just remove that fence now and let people freely use the park until the construction happens? We could remove it. Okay, excellent.
Next item, Madam Mayor, is the first reading of an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending ordinance number 2014-03 to reduce the members of the Education Advisory Board from 9 to 7 and providing for an effective date.
Do I move second?
Who moved it?
Frank.
Second.
Thank you.
Like to open this item for public hearing? For a public comment?
I don't have any speakers.
Closing the
signed up.
public comments. Opening this for discussion for council. It's based on action requested by our council.
Roll call.
7's a lucky number.
Please call the question.
Okay, on reducing the Education Advisory Board from 9 to 7 board members. Councilmember McCormick,
Yes.
Councilmember Moss,
Yes.
Councilmember Petros,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kaplan,
Yes.
Councilmember De La Cruz,
Yes.
Councilmember Gross,
Yes.
Mayor Lindsay.
Yes.
Ordinance is approved on first reading. The second reading will be on June 13, 2017. The next item, Madam Mayor, is the first reading of an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, creating an underground utility task force, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Move.
Second. You beat me.
Like to open this item for public comment. First reading of an ordinance.
I don't have any speakers signed up, Madam Mayor.
I'm closing the public comments and opening this for discussion.
Can I speak out of order really quickly?
You're not out of order, but go.
Have we approved the consent agenda yet?
Yes.
We did.
Oh, we did. Okay, that was when I was walking up. I just wanted to make sure.
You were out of the chamber, that's why.
Okay.
I remember. Please.
Okay.
This makes sense. We should do it.
Good. Now, do we want
Call the
to,
question.
call the question and bring it back for our next agenda. We need to start recruiting. What this ordinance doesn't have is the requirements we wanted for volunteers. We were asking for a level of expertise. You think we've got enough flexibility with the people who show interest?
Probably.
Yes.
Okay, fair
I
enough.
think that we're going to hire expertise.
Yes, but that's,
But let's
Palm
use,
Beach was slightly different.
if we all are making recommendations, let's just use our healthy discretion about who we think would be good on this committee.
Okay,
As
so
always.
this is first
Let
reading.
me-
We have a second reading.
On
So
June
please
13th,
start
yeah.
recruiting and sending recommendations my way.
Let me. Can I
Forward
ask,
them to me so I can forward them to the mayor, please.
Steve? Can I ask you a quick question?
Okay.
Is it? Does this already? To be a member on this particular committee, is it limited to only people who are taxpayers or electors of the village, or can anybody serve on this?
Residents.
Okay, because when I read the
Be a resident and not be a taxpayer or an elected.
when I read the ordinance that Town of Palm Beach had, they had a very specific that you need to be either a taxpayer or an elector to be on it. And I don't know if there was a reason why, because the decisions that were being made affected taxpayers directly or not.
Well, I'm going to guess. I have no idea why, but knowing the nature of that island,
There's not.
it's so transient at times of year that they may not have
Okay.
people who were actually electors.
No, but
it may not be their permanent residence. They may spend the winter there. So
Mhm.
it could be that they didn't want to narrow the group.
they did. They narrowed it.
Yeah, they did narrow it.
So they did narrow it.
Yeah, they did put it in there that they wanted only taxpayers or electors to be able to serve on the board.
On the part-time residents.
It's-
They didn't want the seasonal.
It reminds me of why there's poll taxes in history. You can speculate, but it may be that. It may be equivalent to that. Ours is better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is first reading. If anybody has any thoughts with respect to the qualifications or the scope of authority that the committee has, I think those are the two areas to look at.
Council members, do we have any?
Does it need to be limited to 7? If we voted it, can we increase that number?
We could increase it.
Second reading?
I have to tell you, we just decreased a committee from 9 to 7. People can go to the meetings and weigh in and what have you, but for reasons of quorum and getting decisions done, 7 is a very good number. There's always open participation. So please call the question.
Okay, on the ordinance creating the underground utility task force, Councilmember Moss,
Yes.
Councilmember Petros,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kaplan,
Yes.
Councilmember De La Cruz.
Yes.
Councilmember Gross,
Yes.
Mayor Lindsay,
Yes.
Councilmember McCormick.
Yes.
Ordinance is approved on first reading. The second reading will be on June 13, 2017. The next item, Madam Mayor, is the second reading of an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, repealing and replacing Chapter 18 floods relating to the village's floodplain management regulations, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, providing for transmittal, and providing for an effective date.
Move.
Second. I'd like to open this ordinance reading for public comments.
I don't have any speakers signed up.
We're not ready to make this.
Closing the public comments. I'd like to thank Chief Lang for conducting the workshop we had last week on this item. It was extremely helpful for us and for our residents. Thank you for making that happen. It was critical to the understanding of what the impacts would be. Thank you.
I missed the discussion because I wasn't here at first reading. The workshop was important. I wish the workshop had actually covered the ordinance. It covered very extensively the background and the purpose for the ordinance. This ordinance is quite radically different from our current legislation. And we knew that it would be in some respects. We're at second reading. I don't understand some elements in this ordinance.
Do I?
And I don't understand particularly some of the elements that deviate so materially from existing provisions in our flood legislation and why they need to be so markedly different. I also, and I spotted some of these that might bear an editorial pass. So I don't know whether there's any driver to enact this right now tonight, but I think a little bit of fly specking on this ordinance would be worthy, because I think there's some things in here that either may not need to be in here or may be confusingly presented or maybe even inconsistent one place in respect of another place. So I'd like to edit this.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I agree. I think that we need to look at this a little bit closer. I was at the presentation and did the best we could, but I had more questions when I left than when I entered. So if we do not, go forward with this today, then we need to have a plan on how we're going to address it, because what we don't want is to not address it the next time around, So
we need to adopt an ordinance. We're clear on that. The question is whether it's this very ordinance as written. And I'd rather look at this again if we have the time. If there's a reason we have to do this tonight,
I
we'll do
believe
it tonight.
this was extremely time sensitive. I know that Mr. Moss wants to speak, but let's put a placeholder on that because I believe it's very time sensitive.
No, that was going to be my question. If we can make the motion now to move this to our June meeting and give us time to iron out those details with you, with everybody involved, and see if we can bring it back, because I think it's something that we're going to need to pass one way or another.
Well, I think we'll have our building director.
Yeah.
Mariano, what was the deadline that you had told us about that you were concerned about? Would we be okay in June? Or, I'm sorry.
We did speak about this already.
Yes.
I think that's a great idea. We as a team want the council to be comfortable with this. I spoke with the new director, Sergio. I'd like to welcome him as well. He's already been dialoguing with us on that. We also would like to support that recommendation to move this to the 13th, and we'd like to do a couple things. I'd like to meet with any of the council members that have questions, whether it's one-on-one. If you want to do it in a sunshine session, we can. Happy to engage our professionals and our experts in that discussion. In the meantime, we'll also attempt to host an educational discussion with the industry, if you will, architects, contractors, to try to dive a little deeper to get some more insight and share what the nuts and bolts of this are. If we could, Councilmember Kaplan, Vice Mayor Kaplan, if you reach out to me tomorrow or vice versa, we'll get to the bottom of this, and we recommend tabling this till the 13th.
Yes, Katie.
I just have a couple quick questions in general. I'd like to know what Vice Mayor Kaplan, if there's specific things, because I didn't go through this with a fine-tooth comb looking at the specific wording, and I see this as two issues. One is, are we as a council comfortable with the big elephant in the room, which is increasing the building height by 1 foot? Because it seems like you're alluding to more discrete items in this code. But should we just talk about the fact of whether or not we're comfortable with that one fact? Because I think that's the one that is of most interest to the residents at this point.
If you want my opinion, there's more. There's much more in this, surprisingly more, as I read it, than elevation over finished floor. My opinion, which is still soft from our workshop, is that we are going to have to increase our height. There's just we're just going to have to do that. I'm interested, without getting into a long discussion about this, about a small point, a discrete point that we'll all remember that came up about the implications of doing this for an island that's built out. I want to talk about that. And if we need to find a way to point out the ramifications in an honest but ameliorative way to our community, I want to talk about that too.
But Frank, are you able to elaborate on quickly on the other items that you saw of concern with us?
There's
now?
a lot of them, but it's not important now, is it?
Okay.
You know, I mean,
No,
for
it'd be
one
the
thing,
only time
there's-
that we can talk. So
Would you like to send around through Conchita a red line document that raises your concerns so that we know what you're talking about?
I think I could send around at least comments, like
Or
bullet
comments?
points.
Okay.
I mean, one of the things, and this is just a fundamental pivot from where we are, we have a delegation under the state law, under chapters 163 and 166, I believe, to regulate for the health, safety, and welfare of our community. And our existing regulation does that to the best of our knowledge, intent, and ability, apropos of several years ago, whenever it was adopted. I don't know that it's been amended often, but but it reflects basically and is compatible with our zoning code. This is not. This is really different. And it has to be. You know, we've learned that. It has to be. But does it have to be in all of the particularities that have nothing to do with height? And some of which, as I said, might be inconsistently rendered in this. So, you know, I think a careful read through, and if we all did this, but I'll certainly do it, I'll send you my comments, and then, you know, hopefully that'll provoke our thinking about what to do with this. And if there's a legally required answer, or if there's a insurance required answer that compels us to do something that we feel uncomfortable about, we'll understand that. And we'll understand that we just have to.
Well, and that was my takeaway.
So
That was my takeaway.
So can we make the motion to table this to June 13th?
It would be the motion to continue it.
To
To a
continue.
date certain.
It'll be
Would you like to
continued till
withdraw
June
your
13th?
motion and set forth a new motion?
Withdraw my motion, move to continue till June 13.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Call the question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Hand off.
Welcome to the team. Brace yourself.
The next item, Madam Mayor, is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, authorizing and providing for the village to lease, purchase computer-aided dispatch, records management, software licenses, and mobile software solution for the police department in an amount not to exceed $497,343, accepting terms from City National Bank to provide financing, authorizing the village manager and others to prepare and execute documents, and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Please, Chief, nice to see you.
Future FBI director.
It's good to be back.
Oh, jeez. Frank,
I
that
feel a
was
lot
just too
better than Mr. Comey does tonight.
Indeed. Or maybe he feels better than he did yesterday.
he
I don't
might.
know.
Could be.
Right.
Could be.
You might be able to sleep soon.
True.
Crazy.
I could too. I guess what I'm here to do tonight is just to clarify some I think misunderstanding on what I'm actually looking for here, what the system provides for, and what does and does not happen with CAD systems throughout Miami-Dade County. And I'll try and make it as brief as possible. But when we talk about interoperability with other police departments, that is a term that has been used since 9/11 to create information sharing throughout organizations. That's done through a litany of ways, whether it's providing information via emails, via task forces, telephones, things of that nature. But it's rarely done by actually interfacing and providing connectivity from one CAD system of one city to another CAD system from another city. It can be done, but it's extremely rare. In this case, what we're asking for Key Biscayne is an upgrade to our very antiquated system that we purchased 13 years ago. I'll give you a brief description of that CAD as it stands today. It is an old, worn-out computer, similar to the original computers that came out that were GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. It is manpower intensive to be able to redact any information. To extrapolate reports, we actually have to purchase software when we know we need a report to have that software placed on there so that it can create something. Otherwise, we have to do it by hand. And with all that said, our costs continue to grow. On top of the fact that we have to provide support for the entire CAD system. And in a nutshell, we are putting money into an antique. And let me kind of do a comparison to what Miami-Dade is looking for, City of Miami is looking for in Key Biscayne. And I would say the best way to compare this is to say that Miami-Dade is looking for a Boeing 787. Key Biscayne is not, nor do we need a system that is accountable to millions of items of information, phone calls, record management, etc. The SunGuard system that we're looking for is the perfect fit for a police department of our size, or as in the case of 12 or 13 other organizations similar to our size and some even larger like Coral Gables, Doral, Miami Gardens. It fits their size also. We analyzed the cost of several different CAD systems, and we found that we by far were getting the best bang for our buck, not only for the product that we're actually going to receive and the information that we can gain from it, but the platform that it sits on will pave the way should we decide to go into a 9/11 PSAP in the future. As far as programming with county initiatives and some of the county programs that we are mandated to account for, such as the automated arrest reports, automated ticket systems, automated subpoena systems, including FDLE and FBI mandates on security systems. This provides for all of that and more. The CAD to CAD integration is something that is done sporadically throughout the United States, but it's very rare when one city will plug into another city and be able to extrapolate their information. It's just not done as a standard practice. Nor would we ask, nor have we ever asked, and it's definitely not done in Miami-Dade County, where different CAD systems interface with other CAD systems. So what I'm trying to say to you all is we do need this product. I wouldn't come to you if I didn't feel it was absolutely necessary moving forward. The deal that was negotiated from Mr. Calvo and the representatives of SunGuard is second to none for us. They're very interested in providing this product to Key Biscayne, keeping our costs at a very bare minimum. They have managed through negotiations to reduce the initial cost down over $250,000 from what was originally presented. And the long-term aspects of this product give you security in your mind that we won't need to touch this product moving forward for many years to come. I could tell you that is simply not the case with the current system we have. It's breaking, and it's going to take a lot of money to upgrade, bring us to where we need to be, and eventually, like any other piece of technology, if you think about your computer 13 years ago and you compare it to that computer that you have on your iPhone today, we are in a different solar system, literally, from what we had originally received back then and what we're looking for now.
But this is software, and it's had upgrades. It's not stagnated in 13 years. It's had upgrades.
We have had to continuously try to upgrade it. Yes, ma'am. But we're still dealing with the basic system.
No, and okay, but I mean, all software generally gets upgraded.
It's
so
the only way to provide support, but understand, like all other technology, eventually that software is simply not going to be able to keep up with the needs of the supports that
Well,
we have.
didn't you explain to me also that it's actually not going to be supported very soon? Because typically with software, over a certain period of time,
Yes, ma'am.
just like Microsoft and so
I
forth.
thought I just did that, but I guess it wasn't clear enough. This technology is antiquated, and it will eventually go away, and we will have no support. Once that happens, we're facing a much larger price tag because technology costs more every year.
Chief, and for me, the issue was not do we upgrade. It's do we upgrade today or in 2 or 3 months if City of Miami. We were just trying to get the context of what other upgrades, and if that was something that we should be looking at, because it would be a best practice to make sure that we were as efficient and as compatible. That, to me, was the issue.
Okay, and I understand that, and let me just kind of explain that once more.
Okay.
First of all, the county is on a 2 to 3 year timetable before they even provide a product. I have no idea how long the city is going to take to bring in their product, but I can tell you once again that we don't need that 787 that they're going to have.
Fair enough.
Well,
Yes,
and that's
Katie,
exact-
and then-
I
yes.
had the opportunity to meet with Chief Press, and he explained to me a key component, which was that the systems that Dade County would be interested in purchasing would not be a good system for us, and that it would be more expensive, it would be too large and somewhat cumbersome, and that you had analyzed that, and that this system is ideal for communities of our size.
It absolutely is.
That
And let me
answers
just,
my question. That answers my question. I don't know what.
from Miami Beach, when I was there, I put in a Motorola system, a CAD system, cost $18 million about 20 years ago. 18 million 20 years ago. That was for the city of Miami Beach. You can only imagine what the county and the city of Miami is going to have to pay today to provide for an entire new CAD system. And by the way, the county always prepares to take on an entire county's worth of support should the need occur. So what they're going to build there is going to be the mother of them all.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir.
We're not doing competitive bidding here?
Sir, we took 3 bids with 3 different CAD systems. We compared product, we compared accessibility to the future as far as the need to build on that platform. After they came down with their price, all 3 were competitive, but the other 2 could not compare to what we're going to get out of this
Lucha, we
SunGuard
got that
system.
documentation maybe about 2 months ago, and it's not in this agenda, but it was you
Yes, sir.
provided it to us. Yes, Gary. Sorry.
Okay.
We did our due diligence.
I think we've talked about this a few times now. I think Chief Press has made it very obvious that in his belief as the head of our department, this is something that we need, and the need has become pretty close to critical, if not critical. I think this is a public safety issue. If this is, in fact, the best system for us, and if we've analyzed it and are totally convinced of that, then I think we should move forward with it. I don't see any reason to put this off any longer. I think this is something we need to do, so I call the question.
Call the question, please.
You call the question, or
Yes.
you ask the
mayor to call the
call the question?
I call the mayor to call the question.
All those
You
in-
just told me to call the question.
Call the question.
All those in favor authorizing the purchase for the police department to be up to date? All those in favor?
Aye.
voice
Aye.
vote.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Next item, Madam Mayor, is a capital project authorizing resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, approving Ramonson Public Sector LLC, successor in interest to SunGuard Public Sector LLC for the purchase, installation, and maintenance of a police software system. providing for a waiver of competitive bidding, authorizing the village manager to negotiate an agreement consistent with and substantially in accordance with the terms set forth in the proposal attached as Exhibit A, providing for implementation and providing for an effective date.
Move.
Second. I think this is piggybacks on
Yes, it is.
the former. Please call the, do we have any comments? I think it's been discussed. If you please call the question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, please.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience.
Next item, Madam Mayor, is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, encouraging businesses and special event permittees to replace expanded polystyrene food service articles and single-use carry-out plastic bags with environmentally friendly alternative, providing for transmittal and providing for an effective date.
Move. It's so tepid, I don't want to move it.
Moved it?
Luis moved it.
Luis?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
You can give it to Allison.
Oh, thank you.
She was saying it as I was saying it.
Folks, do we have any comments on this resolution?
It's so weak. It's so.
Well, we're going to pass. We're going to pass the real thing as soon as we
As soon
can.
as the litigation is.
As soon as this is
wrapped
just asking our commercial friends to cooperate.
Yeah, it's right, and I understand the step, and I got the gist of the last meeting that unfortunately I wasn't at. And without revisiting that decision, I would only, if you're going to do something, do it. And if we could elaborate a little bit and be more than urging in this,
Do you want to take a stab at it?
I'd be glad to.
Do you feel just wants to be more enthusiastic about his resolve?
So it's going to be a resolution. Just
I want to be more
enthusiastic.
dogmatic, explain why this is a good idea, push it a little bit, be more persuasive.
Well, our conversation, and I think I'm the one that recommended it be a resolution since we were very hesitant to put it in the ordinance form with this litigation out there. I think that this is a very basic statement of what the intent is, and our intention was to reach out in the community to, first of all, our merchants, our commercial people, and explain to them why this is important and explain to them that we really want them to do that. So we can elaborate on this, and I have no problem with elaborating on it, but I think the execution is going to be how we market it, how we reach the people in the community, how we tell them why this is so important, and how we tell them that in all likelihood, we're asking them to do this now, but we will be telling them to do this in the not-too-distant future if they don't comply. So.
I agree with that, and I think part of my messaging is to ask for partnership, but to do so on the basis of something empirical and something a little bit less like whispering at midnight. Sure.
Steve, you whispered at midnight. So what would you like, Brett? I know this is...
That's fine. Anything, and Frank, if you can make this stronger, I'm all for it, and I'm glad we're doing something. I still am where I was the last meeting, where I think we need to set the examples out there and not wait for other people to resolve their issues with what they're doing. I think even on the contrary, where we're sitting and waiting for a legal battle between one of our neighbors to get resolved, if we would do something, I think it would strengthen their position and actually help them as well as other people get involved. But I also understand that there is a possibility of a threat out there, which I don't believe it would really come to us. But
Have we settled our last lawsuit yet?
I understand. I completely understand. So if we could do a resolution
one at a time
that's strong, and I would love to see this come into an ordinance sooner than later, and if we can do a grassroots with our commercial retailers to talk to them about why we want to do this and get them on board to reduce that threat, maybe that is how we set the example of how other communities should go about it. But I would definitely love to get this into an ordinance sooner than later, and we should. And if this gets us to that step, I would keep that in mind while you're writing that, of how we can, what you said, partner with the retailers.
Katie.
Okay, to bring up your point and Councilmember Gross's point, does the extra month of time to strengthen the wording in this resolution, is that better than adopting this tonight and being able to start to initiate and go out to our merchants now and not in a month? Is it going to make that much of a difference in your mind?
I think maybe not. But I think we should be having those advocacy moments now anyway. We don't have to wait for that. It's really, when you do something official, when you adopt a resolution, we really do stand for prideful work. And this is just weak.
Let me make another suggestion. This is just trying to be a bit creative. What about if we adopt the ordinance with a delayed effective date, and that it becomes effective upon a final disposition of the favorable disposition of the city of Coral Gables litigation? So you have the ordinance in place, its effectiveness starts automatically, so we don't have to come back and do anything.
Would that be the proper, that's a good idea.
That's a great idea.
Would that be the proper trigger, or would the proper trigger be, your advice that we are lawfully adopting the ordinance, or that the ordinance is lawfully effective? Is it just Coral Gables, or is it?
Well, right now within Dade County, and we're sort of unique because a lot of that decision dealt with the Dade County charter and home rule rights and everything else. It's that decision in particular that is on appeal, and we really want to see the favorable upholding of that lower court decision. So I think I can craft language which will work.
I like that idea.
I like that.
Can we do it where have an or? Sorry, Luis. Have an option that we could do it earlier because maybe we talk to our retailers and they're okay.
I don't think that's a good idea. I'm sorry, but what the court is going to decide is not for sure. Which way they're going to decide, how strongly they're going to go one way or the other, if they're even going to make the decision that is expected of them. We're putting ourselves out in the situation where we would have an ordinance that would automatically start after a particular decision gets
It would never go into
but without
effect.
knowing what that decision will be.
It would never go into effect, and then we could turn around and pass a resolution. I just think that trigger is everything.
I would rather make this as hard as our learned council member, vice mayor, past mayor wants to make it, and do it that way, and then just get ready to act as soon as possible when it goes.
Allison,
can I ask I don't think there's a single person up here that does not feel as strongly about this as Brett does, that they would like to have this passed. I think we differ. I know I differ. When I was running for election, I heard over and over again, why is the village in litigation all the time? Why is the village in litigation all the time? So I think we tried to make the decision to avoid that when we saw a possibility. Does passing an ordinance with a date to start, a trigger, in effect just open us up anyway because we're passing an ordinance?
I don't think so. Nobody can challenge an ordinance that's not effective.
It's conditional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And the question is the condition of the resolution of the litigation would be legally sanctioning for our ordinance.
Yes.
I'm happy either way, and Katie's raises a good point too. Does it really matter? If we advocate persuasively with good data behind it and good policy, it shouldn't. But I'd still. You can't pass it and then fix it subsequently, can you?
So take a shot at it. I think that
or you could write a very strong cover letter that we all sign on to.
Can I make a recommendation?
Yes, of course.
Do the resolution, and let's do this grassroots. And when we're ready for the ordinance, we do the ordinance.
I'm happy to take a crack at this, although I'll be doing bullet points day and night on the.
You love doing that.
So do we want to table this until the next meeting and consider continue it?
Do I have a motion
Move
to continue?
Second.
So, Councilmember De La Cruz, you withdraw your motion?
Yes.
Can I
Okay.
just share a story on that before we move on? I had a resident come to me and say they were in Sir Pizza, and they asked, like, why do you guys use this styrofoam? And the reaction was, nobody's ever asked us before. Oh, I'll look into that. So my hope is that we're going to have that kind of response village-wide.
I think we
I
are.
think we will.
I think we are.
So
The
continue.
guys at the Oasis, stopped using styrofoam totally without then having to, and only because they said the village wants us to do it. I think that if we share that thought with all the other commercial establishments, we'll get that same.
And I think that just opens up one thing is how do we implement this resolution so it gets to the people? Because if it's just the resolution, it may just sit there. So
Well, it gives direction to the clerk to send it to all businesses, and I was thinking, of course, of sending it first to the chamber, and maybe the Chamber of Commerce can do, a campaign
sure.
for us. I mean, that's why we have them here.
And I know they're strongly for it. So
Don't forget, this started a long time ago. This has been grassroots, not fully effective, but for a long time. And the big players, of course, are Winn-Dixie and probably the 7-Eleven and CVS. And they've been very receptive up to date.
Yes, they have.
By the way,
At least Winn-Dixie has been. I don't know about some. I have not addressed. I think CVS was lukewarm, but I've never spoken.
I just don't know about 7-Eleven.
When we get ready to pass the ordinance, we have to have, a good grasp of what we need to exempt from that ordinance, like newspaper, bags which are single use. There's a lot of single use things that we really have to provide. Poop bags.
No, they're biodegradable.
no, but the ordinance that you gave had a lot of those exemptions
Yes.
in it. It had the bags.
The ordinance does,
feed-in.
but the ordinance, the resolution doesn't.
Okay.
So
It'd be fun in the ordinance? Let's exempt gun regulation and texting while driving.
no,
That'd be creative law writing.
gun
It's a joke, but
I got it.
that would be fun.
But you want it more specific.
Okay,
So are we continuing this resolution, or
Yes.
are we going with an ordinance?
Continuing the resolution until
To
the
the
next
June
meeting.
13th meeting.
Thank you, Frank, for taking this on. I'm looking forward to reading it.
I better
Really
make it
am.
good.
For Frank. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item of the mayor is a resolution of the Village Council, of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending resolution number 2012-38, which authorized the village's $5,575,000 school improvement revenue bonds, Series 2012, in order to lower the interest rate on such bonds, approving and authorizing the execution and delivery of an amendment to the bonds, authorizing the mayor, the village manager, and other village officials to execute any and all documents in connection therewith, and providing for an effective date.
Move.
Second.
Mayor and council, after careful review of the village's outstanding loans, it is recommended that the village council approve the attached resolution amending the terms of the school improvement bond, Series 2012, for the purpose of lowering the interest rate and hereby providing savings to the village. On October 24, 2012, the village issued the $5.575 million school improvement revenue bond, Series 2012. The fixed interest rate obtained at that time was 3.35%. The bonds were purchased by Total Bank. Due to the current low interest rate environment, the village's financial advisor from Estrada Hinosa was able to negotiate a lower rate of interest on the current loan. Total Bank has offered to reduce the rate from 3.35 to 2.70, keeping all other terms of the loan agreement the same. The new rate would reduce the village's total interest plus all fees cost by $212,428.93. The village manager recommends that the council approve the attached resolution providing for the amendment to the loan agreement and necessary documentation to reduce the fixed interest rate. And we have Ms. Lourdes Abedin, our financial advisor, here to answer any additional questions you have.
I have a question.
Yes, Gary.
My question is, obviously, this sounds great, and dropping the interest rate and saving money is also unarguable, but what is the total cost of doing this, including your fee and all the other costs involved?
$20,000.
Total, all in?
All in.
Okay, thank you.
One other
That
quick
was my first
question.
question.
It doesn't extend the life of the loan, right?
No, it does not.
Okay.
Mine too.
I had already asked her.
That's why we renegotiated instead of refinancing and doing the whole process.
Sure.
Terrific. Call the question, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Lourdes.
All those in favor of approving the resolution?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Councilmember McCormick was out of the room.
And now I'd like our lobbyist, Fausto Gomez, to come up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize.
No, and it's 9:30. His time certain. It's good to see you. Welcome home.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a pleasure to be here. So, we got, session was over last night at 8-something, and the budget was finally approved. $83.2 billion. And of that, but we may start all over again because the governor, as of 5 o'clock today, was saying that he was going to most likely veto the whole budget.
Really?
Right.
What blood sport?
So if that's the case, then we have to begin de novo budget process. But before getting into sort of the particulars of the budget and policy, I wanted to sort of inform all of you what we have in the budget. You requested $165,000 for the traffic lights, and that is funded in the budget. You requested $55,000 for beach. Let me just suggest that in the future we sort of request a little bit more. That is funded in the budget.
That's one truck.
Right. So of the two requests that you sent to Tallahassee, 165 for the traffic lights and 55,000 for the beach, both of those requests are fully funded. So that being said, what I wanted to sort of lay out to you, which I think is very important, is the relationship between Tallahassee and local governments, and which is troubling to say the least. The Speaker of the Florida House of Representatives, Speaker Corcoran, has publicly stated that the government that is the most important is the Florida House of Representatives, and the government that is closest to the people is the Florida House of Representatives. Not local governments, not the state Senate, but the Florida House of Representatives, and he is trying to fully exercise the powers vested in the Florida House of Representatives that have never been fully exercised before. That being said, he advanced through his lieutenants a series of issues that would have fundamentally changed the relationship of the governing to the governed. And I say that because, let me just give you an outline of the things that he advanced, which the Senate refused to take up, and therefore they were defeated. Number one was the super preemption bill, House Bill 17, that basically, instead of preempting issues by topic, as has happened in the past, as you know, we preempt this, we preempt that, everything would have been preempted from A to Z. Okay? And so therefore, the issues that local governments could have, you would have to approach the legislature, the Village of Key Biscayne, and the legislature would file a bill and would grant you powers, so you would have no powers, okay, except those granted by the legislature through legislation that's approved by the House and the Senate. That bill did not pass. Frankly, if that bill had passed, I don't see why any of you would be sitting as councilman or mayor, because your position, frankly, would be redundant. Municipal elections, there was legislation that did not pass that would have set the election dates for every local government in the state of Florida. Tallahassee would have set those election dates, not you. Local business tax. There was legislation to cut the local business tax to a maximum of $25. That would have had significant impact on your budget. That did not pass. Local government fiscal responsibility. That's a fancy way to say that the state would control your budget. You would not control your budget. Okay. Local government fiscal transparency. Fancy way to say that you would not have the ability to raise property taxes, fees, without the approval of Tallahassee. So those are just some of the issues advanced by the Florida House of Representatives that the Senate refused to concur in. And so therefore, the House did not succeed in fundamentally changing the relationship between local governments and the state. However, the next legislative session begins in January. Committee meetings begin in September. Those issues will not go away. Those issues will be facing us again. Now, notwithstanding these items that I just outlined for you, there were a couple of issues that did pass that I think should be of significant concern, not only to the village of Key Biscayne, but to all local governments around the state of Florida. One is the expanded homestead exemption, which is an additional $25,000 for homestead exemption. Now, Tallahassee can tout and say, we cut taxes. They did not. Okay? Because the $25,000 homestead exemption comes out of local coffers, not state dollars. So it is very easy to say, I cut the taxes when you're spending somebody else's money. Now, it is a very difficult position because essentially every resident wants, obviously, less money being paid in property taxes, and that's your right. However, the analysis shows that Miami-Dade County in total will lose $70 million. Of that, let me just give you an example. $12 million will be on fire service, and a similar number would be on police services. So whether the homestead tax, the homestead exemption additional is approved or not approved as a constitutional amendment in 2018, in November of 2018, what will, and I would probably say that it probably will be approved. If you put on the ballot, it probably will get more than 60%. The impact on local government's ability to fund your police department, to fund your fire department, to provide the basic services that you provide to the residents of Key Biscayne will perhaps be impacted. That's going to be on the ballots as a constitutional amendment. Similarly, an item that passed is micro wireless facilities.
Did you say that was going to be on the ballot as an amendment, or it's...
Constitutional amendment in November of 2018.
So it's not effective, it's on the ballot?
It is on the ballot in November 2018. So another issue that passed, which I think is worrisome, is this micro wireless facilities, which would give the right to the wireless providers to use our right-of-way to install wireless transmitters in facilities for 5G. And local governments essentially would not have the aesthetic, would not be able to do the aesthetic and or historical or other considerations to allow them or not allow them. And local government would be forced to approve the applications within a rather limited period of time and with a very, very, very limited fee attached to these companies coming in and essentially, you know, the wild, wild west of putting up not cell phone towers, but micro towers on existing facilities. And then the third thing that I think is worrisome is a bill called Building Code Preemption that has an amendment in it that would preempt local governments from signage at gasoline stations. Now, that was being pushed by the gasoline station owners, and they sort of raised the horribles that local governments have sort of forced them to advertise in a certain fashion and put their signs in a certain fashion. So that was preempted. Based on that as well, there were some issues that are very good for us. The public records. As you know, there's a cottage industry of lawyers. One particular law firm that goes to local governments comes into our receptionist desk and says, I want to see the payroll records for the police department. And if those are not provided immediately, and they usually have a camera going on, then they sue the local government and they settle and they make a little bit of money off of it. So that has now been precluded. Those got you lawsuits have been precluded, and that's very good. If I recall, Mr. Manager, were we sued?
Not sued. Not sued. We were noticed.
We were noticed.
We were noticed. Okay. And unfortunately, however, Florida Forever did not pass, which was our land buying program. And just for you know, of the Amendment 1 dollars, which are 700 and some odd million dollars this year, 250 some odd million of that is going for basic services, which is administrative support for the Department of Environmental Protection. Okay? And the other thing that did not pass, what I wanted to talk about, was beaches, which I think is very, very significant for us. Obviously, there's $50 million for the first time in beach funding for beach renourishment, inlet management, and things of that nature. Okay? $50 million had not been obtained for beaches since before the 27-28 time period where we suffered the financial setback. Usually the beaches are funded, they've gone down to $16 million, but they're usually funded in the $30 million level. So this year it's $50 million, which is very good. So down the priority list it goes, and Key Biscayne therefore gets funded to $55,000. But more importantly is that the policy that we discussed when we were there, Mayor and Commissioner, with the Deputy Secretary DP and the Administrator, also did not pass. The Latvala-Peters bill, which would have changed the ranking system, was not approved. That's coming back in January, of course, and it should pass at that moment because Senator Latvala carries a tremendous amount of heft in the legislative process, and he can probably get that done. Okay. So that gives us, however, a period of approximately 6 to 8 months for us to conjure up our plan for Key Biscayne for our beaches, so that we can go to Senator Latvala and Representative Peters prior to them filing a bill and amend the legislation to make sure it covers the items that are important to the village of Key Biscayne. And I would suggest that's something that we should start working on now. Committee meetings begin September. Okay. Senator Latvala is going to be on Key Biscayne this weekend. He comes in on Saturday and he's leaving on Monday, actually. He is visiting some folks here, and I'll have the opportunity to be with him most of the weekend. And so therefore, he's going to be in this community. So I think we should address, and he'll be at the League of Cities Saturday night. I don't know how many of you will be there, but it'd be a good opportunity to talk to him about our needs with regards to beaches. He is a big partisan of beaches. He believes in beach funding, and he believes in changing the policy with regards to beaches, and beaches is significant.
Do you think he'd like to go to Stiltsville?
Maybe. maybe. So he's going to be here. And finally, let me just say that I appreciate Mayor and Council, Commissioner Council, for being up in Tallahassee with me. I thought it was very important. And I will also tell you this. I thought our meeting with the DP representatives was one of the best meetings we have ever had with regards to beach renourishment and the changes necessary for beaches. Okay? And I really do think that we need to follow up. And with Congresswoman Ross retiring, we have 18 months to make sure that we get in the federal program, which the Latvala bill would be a precondition for securing significant resources from Tallahassee to our beaches. So with that, I'd be pleased to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Brett.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that you said was probably, for me, was extremely disturbing, that the House was going in this direction and pretty much almost eliminating local governments. And I don't think there would be any resident of Florida that would be in favor of this if they have the knowledge that this was going on. Would it be possible for you to send us how our representatives, our House representative and our senator, voted on each of these issues? Because I think what it comes down to, if they're the ones, if they're the ones against this, that's great. If they're not, then we need to speak out about that and understand why. And if there needs to be a change, there would have to be a change. So I would like to know where they stood on all those issues.
Sure. Madam Mayor, let me just say that Representative Duran and Senator Rodriguez are excellent representatives of the village of Key Biscayne.
That's good to hear.
We could not have more committed and effective members, even though they're in the minority party.
Frank, and Lucho.
On the beach advocacy, I'm going to send around tomorrow a summary that I'd asked for from the Coastal Ocean Task Force that Senator Latvala knows all about. There is an element in there that singles out Key Biscayne as geologically not unique, but different. And we can take from this material, which I think Senator Latvala knows all about, I think he's seen it as it was being developed, and extract why we're special and why we have special needs. And we need to get to work on that so that we're crisp about it. But the point of this is there's a database that's, I think, excellently rendered, rooted in science, the product of a lot of work, and I'm going to circulate it tomorrow, and you'll send it to Fausto. Okay. I don't know exactly where within this raft of materials our little nugget of significance lies, but we'll find it.
Okay. Lucho.
You mentioned that the money for the lights. Can you explain that a little bit? What was it exactly that was approved?
The Village of Key Biscayne requested $165,000 for adaptive traffic signalization.
Okay.
The budget includes that amount for that purpose.
So that's money that the state will give us, and so what do we do with it?
We would pay Miami-Dade County to fast track our lights. Remember,
and then when we get the money back, we have to give it back.
No, we don't have to front the money. That was part of our discussion. One way or another, we were trying to get that money. We were hoping not to have to be out of pocket because.
But once the Miami-Dade County gives us back the money, what do we do with that money?
We don't need to enter into that agreement. We can just say, here we've got cash money. We want the lights now.
Okay, well, I mean, obviously that's better, but
that was we had two concurrent strategies. One, to get the money from the state because this is the one main road to the state park.
If we're not doing is we're giving the county a windfall because it was they were spending the money and so we're getting the money now and giving it to them for them not to have to spend it.
Fast tracking. Yes. Maybe
4 years ago, and I'm going to ask.
No, my first question is: can we, if we had an agreement? We have an agreement now where they are paying for it. We're just putting it up for the time period that they needed for the time that we would normally be funded. If we are not going to use that because we have the $165,000, then we're basically saving the county $165,000, or we're giving them $165,000 that they're going to give us back.
No.
No.
We can't do that.
No. I think this changes the entire deal that we've been working on, which is fine. I mean, because it makes it a lot simpler. One of the difficulties we've had in negotiating this is that because county money is being spent here at the end of the day by reimbursing us, they wanted us to go through all hoops and jump over everything. And it's been a nightmare trying to get through that issue. If there's no reimbursement and we're just paying for it with the funds that we get.
Correct.
It's go out there, buy it, put it in.
No, it's not, because we're still not going to do the work.
I understand. There's still an element that requires them to.
No, definitely. I just wanted to know whether, because if we could keep the money after it gets reimbursed, then it would be great. In this case, we're not going to get reimbursed. We're helping the county. We're giving the county $165,000. We're donating the money to the county.
But we're not out of pocket, and we always had. And this was part of the discussions we had. We're not out of pocket. We were always concerned about if we would be reimbursed and when we would be reimbursed.
Well, that was part of the deal. We wouldn't have gone into the deal without it being.
Well, we are. The agreement does provide for up to $200,000 of reimbursement.
Yeah. So we were never going to lose that money. We're just going to put it up, and we're going to get it back. So the county should be really, really happy with us.
Correct.
Because we've saved them $165,000.
That's the quid pro quo for them putting the light as soon as possible. Because they just won the lottery.
Yeah, this doesn't happen in real life.
What doesn't?
Well, it's something like this that
Thank you, Fausto. We appreciate it.
We
Thank you.
We
That's why we
saved
thank
somebody
Fausto.
else $165,000. I mean,
But Lucho, the benefit to the county and to the state is that the access to the state park, which is the fourth most visited park in the state and has over 1 million visitors, is now far more accessible. I mean, there's
it was
a
going to happen
benefit.
anyways. What I'm trying to say, I was just hoping that we could somehow keep that 165,000.
No, let's.
No, it's earmarked for a specific purpose. You can't take it and then use it.
So tomorrow I'm going to make a phone call. It's going to make somebody very, very happy.
Don't. It has to.
Wait until the governor doesn't.
He can't. He can veto it.
Oh, he can veto it. Okay, so you let me know as soon as it works out.
That's happened to us before.
We're on the verge of finishing an agreement with them where we were going to put up our money and they were going to give us back the money in 3 years, 4 years. Now we don't have to do that. We're going to actually give them the money, and they're going to save $165,000.
You could say it 14 more times and it still comes out the same way. That's the deal.
I just think it's incredible
let's be happy and move on.
Something happens like that.
It happens.
It's amazing.
Mr. Gomez, thank you very much for your hard work. It's been quite a challenging session. Thank you.
May I ask a question of our
Of
attorney?
course.
Yes.
Steve, could you get me the statutory reference where we passed 3 or 4 years ago that that Crandon is eligible for state dollars as a local law?
Yes.
Because
I got to look at that.
Yeah, if you could,
I remember that.
Right. I was trying to find it, and obviously you're more adept in statutes.
Not really.
How soon will we have that money? No, man, that's extremely relevant.
It's you're not going to get it until it's for the upcoming year. So I don't know when
Fiscal July 1st.
Fiscal year begins July 1st.
Yeah.
So that money would go to Florida Department of Transportation. Florida Department of Transportation would come here and would craft an agreement, I assume, with the manager and signed by the mayor, et cetera, et cetera. So probably the first time that you would see it, if everything goes smoothly, which it doesn't, would be probably in October.
In October.
Right. Now,
What was our time frame if we were writing the check ourselves?
Well, they're waiting for our agreement. They're ready to go, in terms of, but there's other issues that have to be ironed out, which require.
They're not ready to
There are
go.
issues
Which
still pending.
require. They're ready to go with the agreement that they propose, which
We're not.
We
accept.
can't. Yeah.
Because we'd have to do an RFP for an engineer in order to do this stuff. You understand? That's
They have a whole department.
right. Exactly. And that's what
Basically, what they said is, you guys can do it, but you follow all the rules that the county follows in terms of bidding, in terms of small business enterprises, and we said, you can't put that all on us.
Right.
I mean, we got to figure out a way to do this.
That's what was holding it up. So now with the money, it might,
Is it possible to front the money still and take the state dollars as our reimbursement?
Well, that's what I
or
was
do you
trying to-
have to wait for the actual check to arrive?
It's highly unlikely that we're going to be able to get the money from the state and use it and then get it back from the county.
That's not what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Pay
asking
ourselves back.
Can we if the county will install these lights as soon as they get the money, can we give them the money under no condition of them reimbursing us, and rather than when we receive the money from the state, we reimburse ourselves for the outlay that we put out ASAP?
Why not?
Do we have to wait for the check from the state?
I don't know what the terms of the agreement will be in terms of the grant or the money to us.
In other words, can we spend the money
Devil's in the details. We don't know.
and then get reimbursed whenever we get the money?
Katie, you had a question.
Switching topics a little, I just wanted to know if you had for us almost a bullet list of items that we needed in place before you go back in September for beach renourishment, the things that we need to accomplish.
when I was with the mayor and council member McCormick, again, which was frankly one of the best meetings we've had about, with Village of Key Biscayne, and it was fairly bottom line. As a matter of fact, I'll just let you know that the deputy secretary got back to me, and she was saying, why was I very upset at her? Because remember, I was a little bit aggressive.
Yes.
And I had to give her a kiss and say I wasn't being aggressive. I was simply wanted to get information, and I wanted to cut through all the pablum that usually these meetings entail. Okay? So she suggested a couple of things. Number one is make sure you get the federal authorization for beaches, which Key Biscayne does not have. And I would suggest to you that we have Ileana Ross Latham. She's in a powerful position. She's going to be gone in 18 months, and we need to do that now. Okay?
We will be discussing this shortly.
Yes.
You already have the bullet list.
Yes.
Bullet point list.
We have it all.
We've been working. Since we met, we've all tried to put this in motion.
So that's simply the first thing. Second thing is coordinating with our beach consultants who are the experts on all this rigmarole. I know how to do it politically.
You don't have to restate it for me if they have it. Thank you.
We have it.
Thank you.
So should we write Representative Corcoran a letter inviting him to come down and patch our sidewalks where they're broken and uneven? Would that be helpful?
I think you should write a letter to Senator Rodriguez and Representative Duran thanking them for their assistance.
Thank you.
Done.
And I also think that, believe it or not, Senator Latvala, being from Pinellas County, was also quite helpful. And he's chairman of the Appropriations Committee of the Senate. So, and Senator Brandis, who is the chairman of the TED, Transportation Economic Development Appropriations, who's a transportation maven, remembered the statute that we passed. And when I went to him to try to put the $165,000 in his budget, he immediately took it, said, I remember the issue. I remember that we changed state law to sort of access to the state park because it used to be a state prison, which if you recall, Madam Mayor, we came up with that.
Yes.
Okay, and we modeled it after the state prison for state parks. He remembered that and he said, absolutely. And we're going to put this money in there because, not for the village of Key Biscayne, but to help the state move traffic in and out of the state park.
Which is
Which is rationale. And I'd like that statute because for the governor.
I will get it for you.
For the governor, it's important that if he doesn't veto the whole budget, we lobby him, and I think that's
For the
incumbent.
tourist dollars, and that's,
No.
nope, for the, no, the impacts.
Just no line item to our item.
No, and we have a statutory reference.
Yes.
Which the appropriation rests upon that statutory reference, and so therefore it's not pork. It is sanctified pork, because essentially you can
So
tie it
let's
to
work on
statute.
that language, and we can circulate that and
It's easy.
have
We
it.
just need to get it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Steve, let's,
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Next item, Madam Mayor, it's a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, authorizing the village manager to issue a work order to EAC Consulting, Inc. for engineering services relating to the Fernwood Road lighting improvement projects and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Mayor and council's recommended the village council approve the attached resolution to authorize the manager to issue the work order to AAC Consulting Inc. to provide engineering services for the lighting on Fernwood Road. On September 27, 2016, the village council adopted the FY 16-21 capital improvement plan, incorporating the master plan initiative for street lighting on Fernwood Road, Westwood Drive, and West Heather Drive. The lighting on Fernwood Road would commence as the first segment of this objective. EAC Consulting has provided a proposal attached as Exhibit A pursuant to the Continuing Professional Services Agreement executed May 24, 2016. The services described in Exhibit A will be paid from the street lighting Phase 4 line item included in the FY17 capital improvement. If you go to, if I may, just to the exhibit, you'll see how the proposal is broken down into a statement of work, the schedule and timeline, what we can expect from deliverables, and the compensation breakout.
Mr. Manager, Mike, we are tacking on to what we did along Harbor Drive and West Mashta, or I'm sorry, yes, West Mashta. So this is the next phase, and my understanding is that there are additional roads that do not have any lighting whatsoever. And so this is a great start, but I am hopeful that for our next budget process, that our Public Works is identifying that, and this came up when we had the issue in Mashta Island, the places where we have no lighting, because I think that's a safety priority. I'm so glad you're on this. I just hope that we can address the gaps that we have.
Yes, ma'am.
Brett, and then, I'm sorry, and Alice, I'm tired. No?
Quick question. EAC was our engineering on the other two phases that we've already done?
I don't recall.
But they're our preferred vendor now.
We started those,
I was just wondering if they were the ones that did the other ones.
EAC perform a preliminary design build at one time, because that was the choice of council. And we did it for Fernwood, Masha, and
Harbor.
the other drive.
Harbor Drive.
Okay, and now we're taking Fernwood all the way through 100% design, so it will be permitted, and then it will be, come up for bids. That's what we're doing at this time. I assume that eventually Mashta will come again, and some of the other streets will come back on again too.
Thank you. Council members, any other comments or questions on this? Are we ready to call the question?
Okay, on authorizing a work order to AC for engineering services for lighting on Fernwood Road. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item, Madam Mayor, is reports and recommendations. By the way, it's item 12 and not 11. I had item 11 twice. It's mayor and council members, oversight enforcement of vendors and village parks. Mayor Lindsay.
Sure. As we focus on more programming on the Village Green, but also the desire for our neighbors, residents, and friends to use, to enjoy our parks, and I don't know if you all have received similar complaints, but complaints about multiple vendors on the Village Green. My understanding through Todd is that we've had some vendors without permits. 3 have been cited. And so what I've been told by residents is when they are there for programming with their children or simply to go to the park, is even accessing the different parks, they are bombarded and tripping over vendors that have businesses, whether it is teaching how to, inline skate or different, and so they have their businesses, they're using the sidewalks, they're using the walkways, and I've gotten calls from mothers with strollers concerned for safety, people who are, middle-aged and a little older tripping over weights. And so my concern is we had passed an ordinance which was to allow some vendors limited use of the Village Green to have private businesses. But it seems to, one, be a little out of hand and something we need to think about regulating so that it's not a safety issue. And 2, there's an enforcement component where people are just all opening up their little cottage industry. This is a public park. We are limited for space. It is not a venue for private enterprise. And I just wanted to, one, raise this to you, and if you all have had any other friends or residents or people bringing up, just to share this as a discussion item.
I'd like to study it. I appreciate you bringing it up. What I hear, it cuts both ways. There's some degree of appreciation for the multiplicity of services and the convenience, but it can become an obstacle. I'd like to look at it with my own eyes.
Todd, would you like to come and talk about some of the challenges that you've had and what you're doing in terms of enforcement so residents are aware that you are taking some action, but what the challenges are?
Sure. We currently have 6 vendors that are permitted to work there. We had recognized that there had been some other people out there, so working with Eric and Mike Mila from Code Enforcement, he went out a couple of times and first made his presence known, let people know that if you're not permitted, you're not allowed to be here. And then when he continued to see people there, he started to cite them and tell them if you're conducting private business in the park, you need the correct permit. Some of the people reached out to me. I sent them the application. I think when we originally started this program, it was recommended that we cap it at 7. So there's 1 available. We'll review the applications that come in, and then we're done providing permits. And
what kind of permits are these?
This is everything from T-Fit to Boris doing his class to the gymnastics with the kids.
So who are the permitted people today?
Those three.
And three
there's-
more.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I have them all.
I
in my
mean,
office.
is it a problem?
I think that there was unpermitted people out there. I did last week get a complaint from a resident with one of the unpermitted trainers who had hung rings from a tree, for example, and his kids were walking through and his kids grabbed the rings that were hanging from a tree, and the trainer yelled at him, "Hey, that's my equipment, don't let your kids touch it." And he was like, "They're what? I mean, they're just rings hanging, of course kids are gonna grab them." And he came to me, he's been one of the people that's been cited and has decided he's no longer gonna conduct that business in the park.
But more importantly, he's putting rings on trees and people can get hurt in a park.
Well, he
I
should
mean,
be
that,
putting
that to
rings
me
on
is the
trees
bigger-
anyway.
TFIT puts stuff on the trees that you use. I get what you're saying on one level, and on another, I think the risk is relatively low, especially if it's within the realms of an organized exercise where people are watching. If you put it on the trees and then you leave, that's another story.
I think we need to ask Todd, do we need to help you with this, or is this something that you can handle with Mike? And, Mike's the bulldog. You tell him to do something, he'll take care of it, so.
With Mike's help, we can control this. Because as a Parks and Rec person, like we say, we're going to tell you to stop, or we're going to say stop again.
Okay.
Mike has enforcement abilities that we don't, so he's been able to be a big help in this regard.
So part of the issue, though, is that residents are approaching us because they've had safety concerns and they've tripped over things, and they don't want a dangerous situation when they go to their park. So with that in mind, yes.
What does a permit cost to be a vendor there?
It's $100 a month.
All right, so what does it cost if one of these vendors are in our community center using like the dance room or one of these rooms to do for-profit?
It would be on a 70-30 split.
Okay.
Depending on the amount of people, it could be significantly more.
I mean, I see more of I don't know if it's a problem or anything, but, you have businesses are competing with businesses that are in our community.
Well, some of them are local businesses.
Are local businesses.
Like Robert DiZuglio is another one that I didn't mention. He has a permit. So they go out there and they train in the park, and they pay $50 a month. They pay half as much as if you're a local business.
But he
So that's
also
our-
has a physical place, so it's his supplement.
If you have a physical place, your permit fee is half than if you don't.
I mean, let's get back to the main issue, which is whether or not this is a safety concern. I personally haven't been getting a lot of complaints.
Yeah, I haven't either.
You have or have not?
What I would like to hear from Todd is when you go out and when you're looking, do you feel that 7 permits is, I have a bunch of questions, but do you feel that 7 permits is the appropriate number? My next question kind of goes with that. Is there a limit on the number of clients that can go on one permit, or the limit on the amount of physical space that one permit can take up?
To your questions, when they apply for an area and a time. So we manage that. The one element that hasn't been managed in the current permit is the number of people. If I recall correctly, there isn't a cap, so we can create a cap. That one person, and we can just do that because your ordinance authorizes us to manage this process.
But it's our residents using this stuff. I mean,
I just want, I'm not saying that we should, limit, but we have to, I'm asking Todd, do you feel like that we're
That's why I
doing
asked
this
him,
appropriately?
do you think that there's a problem? If you think that there's a problem, come to us and we'll help you. Otherwise.
I think the problem has been.
There's a problem.
To this point.
He's telling you there's a problem. He's
the people
cited
without
people.
permits.
Are you saying that there's a problem?
People without
You know,
permits
help
are a problem.
The people that are, but that's the problem that you've addressed.
Code enforcement.
And we've addressed
You can
it.
do it.
Yeah.
You took care of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Next question.
The question is not that. The question is whether there's a safety problem.
Yes, there's a safety problem too.
There's a safety problem with the unpermitted people, and you're on that. My next question is, if all of those people apply for permits, you have one left.
Yes.
What is the process for renewing your permit? And is there any type of, because by my math, if you have more than one person who will be seeking a permit because they are unpermitted, but you only have one left, the next time that they expire, you're going to have more people applying than you have permits. Do you automatically renew if you already had one? Is there a lottery? How are you going to handle that?
I mean, it's much like the trainers in the community center. We have a limit on the trainers in the community center. As long as they maintain their license, their insurance, and everything they do, and they're in good standing with us, and the members are happy with them, we see no reason to remove their permit. If somebody doesn't pay on time, they leave stuff in a dangerous area of the park, we get complaints about the way they're conducting their business, we at our discretion can make that permit available to somebody else.
Can I help move this forward? Yes. I think that the question that Luis and Myra are saying, is it a policy issue or is it an enforcement issue? And I would like to ask Myra, where do you see this? Are you recommending him to enforce this more, or are you recommending that we should be looking at a policy?
Well, I am asking him to enforce it more. I just said, listen, there are safety concerns that have been raised. Do you know anything about this? And he said, yes, absolutely. In fact, he was recently aware of this, and he's been trying to enforce what is available. But then he raised a couple of other issues. One, as programming, and we discussed, as programming increases, this was supposed to come back to us to reevaluate to see, is it working, is it not working? It was something that we had tried, we didn't know how it was going to work or not. So we're kind of back at the, let's kind of analyze our successes and address what needs to be fixed. So the question of, there's a different impact if you have 7 vendors out at almost the same time in practically, in areas where they want the bricks and they want all sorts of things, versus if you stagger it. Would that, given the impacts on the Village Green, be a better policy? Do we need to tweak the policy? Is it the best we can do? Have we identified the right places? So it was twofold. He's totally on the enforcement. He's totally on the safety issues. People, sometimes it's a little bit of an obstacle course, and everyone should have access to that public park that was created as a Village Green. People want to walk along the perimeter or walk through the center for exercise, and sometimes they feel they can't, or they can't stroll their kids. I recognize that. I thought we should discuss it.
See, I think Todd does a great job, and I'm the flip side. I'm not for policing something that doesn't need to be policed. I think Todd does a really good job at doing that, and if he needs our help, then he'll come to us and say, hey, we need to do something about changing this thing. But until that date, I'm not sure that we need to
So, Lucha,
pass ordinances.
Residents came to me and not, or maybe not to Todd. I thought that was the way to raise it. Okay,
that's good. Okay,
so because when we get complaints, we're responsive. Yes,
So it's right to do so.
Yep.
If you discern, situations, as Myra's describing, she's heard from, you know what to do.
Yes, sir.
I just want to tell you what I've discerned, and I'm not there every 5 minutes. In the afternoons when all of these activities are going on, I think it's wonderful. There's a lot happening. It's very active. People are drawn to it. People that aren't part of the events, I discern, sort of hover around and look at the kids doing gymnastics. It's really pretty cool. So unless somebody's leaving a dumbbell so that a geriatric will trip over it, which is a problem.
That's one of the issues.
So she's raised this. You'll be attentive to it. Yes, the permitting thing is a completely different point. But my predisposition is that it's wonderful. It's working very well, unless there's a safety issue. And if there's a safety issue, we fix it. That's my bottom line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, review of village committees. Your item also, Madam Mayor.
Okay. We've been trying to address this for the last couple of months, and we have, just in review, Art and Public Places. We do have an opening, and I'd like to request all residents who are interested in serving on this committee to contact us and let us know your interest and why your interest, and we will be following up. We need a liaison. Yes.
We do need a liaison, and I'm not sure that just plugging it with the BPZ director because of Judd's former role is the right answer.
I'm hoping you would serve.
I will serve gladly. The other,
Done.
Can we get men involved in this?
well, this is a point.
Mayor, we have
raised.
7
The answer is
members.
yes, because
We
men
have
were involved. I used to be on this board. This is an 8-member committee now. This might
But
be
8 members and
this might be a 7-member committee.
there is a 7-member, and my apologies, there was a typo. I was looking at the wrong.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
It says total of 8 board members, but then it says 7 members.
4,
So it's a
5,
7.
6, 7, 8.
Yeah, we're
There's 8
missing,
members.
you were right, we're missing a member.
But here's my point.
Yes.
This committee is unusual. This committee requires being in concert on subjective things. It is, and the calculus or the chemistry in this committee, whoever's on the committee, needs to work for the committee to work excellently. It just is the nature of this task. Purely aesthetics, taste, subjectivity, and connections. The ability to discern who's out there in the art marketplace and to make that networking work for us and to be discerning about what's right for us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm inclined to leave this committee as it is and fix the number at the number that it's at and let it keep working. But I'd be glad to serve as liaison.
I'd ask for you if you're willing to serve as liaison, and Frank, if you have been working with the committee unofficially, it's part of your passion in this community, so if you recommend, I would follow your lead, and if you want to instruct our attorney to come back and amend the ordinance, that's fine with me.
So do we have consensus to
does it have to be
appoint
amended?
Vice Mayor Kaplan as?
We could simply not fill it, but it just works.
Okay.
You know, it just works, and it's not the kind of thing where you just put another person in and it just, you know, it's not a fungible plug-in Joe for Sally. And I have some experience with this because I served on this board. So that would be my recommendation, and I'm delighted to serve as liaison.
Please, we would appreciate it.
And are you asking that the number of members be reduced?
No, be cap. It's right where it is.
Just cap it at 8, and he can and
At 7.
fill it whenever you.
Well,
Okay, fine.
The ordinance, or the resolution says eight members. We now have 7, so you're requesting to
I'm
reduce it
suggesting
from
we
8
leave
to
it.
7.
We leave it at where it is.
Leave it at 8.
At 8?
Yes.
There's 8. There's
I
8.
have to fill it.
Oh, there's 7.
1, 2, 3.
There's 7 right now.
4, 5, 6,
7.
7.
The ordinance reads 8.
But the ordinance reads 8.
It's okay.
I would just not fill it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's,
And then do we have consensus to appoint Vice Mayor Kaplan as council liaison?
Move.
Yes.
Second.
So consensus is fine.
great.
Thank you.
Next committee, Dog Park Committee. Now we have a full committee on that. We're looking,
These names aren't accurate. There's people on here that aren't on the committee, and there's people on the committee that aren't listed.
Madam Clerk, if you could check that, I thought we, if you
Right, that's the list that I
You're gonna-
have that was appointed.
At the beginning.
at the beginning, please, if you could go through different minutes and see what the changes were. Evidently, it's
I
changed.
don't know if it,
Officially?
Yeah,
Exactly.
it was not done officially.
So could we have the unofficial list from you so that we can know what we have?
yes, because what happened, once we determined a location, then this, it sort of morphed into, I mean, I don't think it
Now,
was ever sunsetted.
Do we want to sunset it and bring it back as a policy?
What's the difference?
This was to find a location and design the park. So they are technically done with their responsibilities. So if we sunset and create a new dog park committee for programming
You
and
need a dog
policy.
park committee.
So again, so that they actually have a discrete role and they know what they're doing, because that seems to be the best practice and just appreciated by our people who are serving. Do I have a consensus to sunset this and bring it back? And do we need a motion?
I don't know that you need to. Do you want to continue to keep the same members?
We don't even know who the members are.
Okay.
Evidently,
all
this
right.
is not accurate.
Here's my
Yes.
suggestion. It's not sunsetting. We'll amend the ordinance and
Thank
the
you.
purposes under the ordinance,
Yes.
which are now going to change.
The purposes are
Right. We don't
for
have to eliminate
policy and
everything. We just
programming.
need to change that, and you need to make appointments.
Okay. And reappoint.
Do you know everyone's name?
And I move to appoint Katie as the council liaison.
Well, I think
That's my role. I
Okay,
know you
sorry.
hate that charter. And yes, in fact, Katie I move to appoint, and if you all have your
and I agree with
approval,
you.
there you go. That's the way it works.
I
Yes.
want to call the question.
Part of, commission suggestion.
Yes.
I think the committee has a purpose, but the purpose might include, we've now acquired another park. And we've also now had experience with the more locations of the cleanup stations, the dog bag stations.
We need more cleanup stations.
So feedback on what we
Fair
can do
enough.
better, and also where the no dogs in park signs ought to be removed, because now we've established a precedent in the Village Green, and that precedent might be continued elsewhere in other parks, but the Dog Park Committee could conceivably weigh in on that decision, park by park by park.
Terrific. Steve, do you have that for a new amended ordinance?
I'm not sure she understands.
I have it.
You understand?
It's going to not only include
I know what
the
you're talking
dog park, but it may include
Parks.
and
Basically,
dogs.
and presence of dogs within
Yes,
the village and
yes.
where we.
She got it. She's
All right, good.
right on.
Good study.
Excellent. Thank you.
It's because she has a
Our
smart dog.
next committee, which we have amended to seven members, we have an opening, and I would like to appoint on the recommendation of council Ersuli Olavaria, who has been participating and been a wonderful addition to the committee, and so officially we'd like to appoint her if I have your consensus.
Only if we make Mike Davey pronounce her name 3 times quickly.
We will, certainly, gladly. And in terms of a council liaison, I wish I could have 2, but I think Allison McCormick, if you're willing to serve.
I would be honored.
Thank you. Do we have a consensus of council on that?
Yes.
Then our next is our Investment Advisory Committee. We have 5 committee members, and we're fully staffed, but we need a council liaison, and Gary Gross, if you would be willing to serve on that committee.
Be happy to.
Thank you so very much. Pension Board, we have the 5 members we need, and we do not have a liaison, and it is not required that we have a liaison, so we are good there.
Well, because you have a member, 2 members that are appointed by council, so.
Correct. Well, it's also statutorily created, and so we have to follow the statute. It's not
Right.
Up to us. Winter Concert Advisory Committee, we have 1 vacancy. I'd like your approval to appoint Dr. Clint Bush.
Great idea.
Dr. Clint Bush?
Yep. And Council Liaison, Frank, would you be willing?
Delighted.
Thank
Oh
you
my
so
God,
very
poor
much.
Frank.
Delighted.
You are like the cultural and intellectual component of this brain trust.
Let's hear what you say when I bring all bluegrass all the time.
You know what?
I love it. Wahoo.
And one night a polka for Gary.
No polka. Yeah, maybe a square dance, but no
Youth
polka.
Youth Athletics Advisory Board, we have a total of 7 members that are currently serving, and our council liaison is Luis de la Cruz. And then Land Acquisition Committee, we have a total of 7 committee members. We have asked our we've asked our manager to look for an urban planner or a city planner to help us prioritize and identify what the best practice would be in terms of public spaces and continuity, just an overall plan for a master plan for parks and our community.
What's the timing there?
What is the timing there? How are we with that, if we could have a status? Because he has nothing to do. We just don't give him any work.
I thought it was already done, I'm sorry. Before the summer break.
Okay. And so I believe that the council asked to have a short respite with the Land Acquisition Committee until we can have a plan and give them
Right.
better direction. Brett, you have been absolutely instrumental and gone to meetings for years. And I would ask you, if you would, to volunteer as a council liaison. Thank you so very much.
The manager, the next meeting is the last meeting before summer break.
Yes, Brett, and you were going to add to
We
that.
also have the utility task.
Utility?
Underground utility
I
task.
know that.
Okay.
They didn't. Thank you.
I would ask you to chair that as
That
well.
would be good.
Okay.
Sorry.
Chair, but liaison.
Yes. Well, yes.
I don't want to-
Yes, no. So if you could be liaison for that as well, I.
You need to bring suggestions for the 7 members of that committee for the next meeting?
We are going to need more than 7 and send them through Conchita to me.
For which one, the dog park?
Underground.
Utilities.
Oh, the utility.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought it was set up for 7.
Yes, but usually we don't just want 7.
Right.
We
Right,
want
right.
more than
Pick
7
from.
to make sure that we have.
Oh, no, yeah, okay.
Yes.
What I mean, okay.
I have 2 also.
Suggestions for the 7.
For the 7, yeah.
We could bring 30 suggestions for the 7.
Nomination.
Correct. And I'll bring up the 7 and you guys vote on it, what the selection. That's, again, one of like the 2 things I'm allowed to do under the charter.
Don't test me.
Can I go to the next?
Don't test
item,
me.
Mayor?
You know what? 2
next-
words, deck action.
You don't have too much, Mayor. It's already almost 10:30.
Yes.
Next item is discussion on long-term comprehensive strategy for beach renourishment. And that includes the item that is before you with the council member.
Absolutely.
Provided.
As you know, we've been very concerned about this. When Allison and I went up to Tallahassee, one of our priorities was to get some direction from the state and to get some movement from the state.
Oh, here. Spoke to.
Are able, Fausto Gomez was wonderful in getting us in front of the Deputy Secretary of DEP. We really got a roadmap as what we needed to do on a state level to get our beach renourished to a substantial amount, close to what we did in 1987. We also got a wonderful report which really dovetailed to what we needed to do from Steve and Weiss Sirota. And Gary on independently and concurrently has been working on the federal angle, knowing that we need to use our Congresswoman to get back on the federal shoreline protection plan in order to even be viable on the state. But really, it has to be part of our long-term strategy. So Gary, you've been working on this, and if you could just take it away and tell us what you have found.
Sure. I've talked to a lot of people that are fairly knowledgeable on this entire topic, and it's become obvious that the primary thing that we have to do, like in most complicated projects, is to find someone, a consultant, to pull this together and lead the effort. And in talking about this to many, many people, one person's name kept popping up, and this is Colleen Castile. She's the person whose plan that I sent around to you. You can look at her resume, and it's very impressive, but the most important part of it, I think, from our perspective, is that she is a past Secretary of DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, and she led up the agency, headed it up. She now has her own consulting firm, and it specializes in this exact same kind of project, helping municipalities and sometimes businesses obtain permits. But she's outlined here, and you can look at it on page 5. It's very interesting. There's a process that has to be followed, and that process is very specific, and it has to follow in a specific order. And if you look at it on page 5, I don't need to read it to you, and you can read this whole thing. She is proposing that she take the lead in this entire effort that starts with identifying our plan, what we have to do, finding a consultant, an engineer to develop a plan for us, She can identify, we can, by the way, fill in the blanks anytime we want, but she will, if we want her to, identify the engineer to take the lead in designing the project. And the important part of the engineer is it's got to be someone with a proven track record of getting his design projects approved by the 3 agencies. And she's worked with a lot of people that are very qualified. She'll recommend 3 to us. The interesting thing on the funding, which she also will take the lead on, is this is the second time tonight we're going to be talking about a scoring system. In order to determine who gets funding, because the state of Florida has limited amounts of money allocated to this each year, and they allocate that money, or they at least try to, on a the most needed basis. So there's a scoring, and the maximum score is 115 points for any beach project, and you have to really be one of the top scorers in order to qualify for some of this money. And the higher your score, the better the chance you'll get not only some money, but maybe a larger chunk of it. So she'll take the lead in helping us develop our scoring pattern so that we do rank very highly up there and have a good opportunity to get the funding, not only on the state level, but on the federal level. So I think that of all the people that I've talked to and talked about, she seems to fill the bill. She's made us a proposal to act as our consultant. I think her fee is $50,000 a year for 2 years. We can terminate it anytime we want with 30 days notice. But she has tried to emphasize, and everybody keeps bringing up the fact that Ileana Ross-Layton is retiring. She continues to emphasize the fact that no matter how we approach this, it's got to be approached before she leaves office, because she's the one that's going to, the driving force that's going to try on the federal level for sure to get us federal funding. We've talked about our situation out here. I've shown her pictures of the 87 beach. I've shown her, given her information on the restoration projects we've had. I've told her about how we continue to get limited more and more severely by the seagrass issue. I've told her what's happened on this last project, and it's really interesting. She lived on Key Biscayne for quite a while, and we talked about how we used to go down to the beach and go swimming out 15 or 20 feet from shore and dive on these beautiful coral reefs. And she did the same thing. She knew exactly what reefs I was talking about, and they're not there anymore. They're buried. They're gone. So I think she has the local knowledge, the local affection for Key Biscayne because she lived here and understands what we have and what we've lost. I think she has a real desire to help us to the best of her ability, and I think she's got the qualifications to do it. I'd like to try to make a decision somehow or another, very quickly though, as to do we want someone to lead the charge? If we do, should it be Colleen? If there's a reason why somebody has a better idea or wants to recommend somebody else, by all means, let's do that. But the thing I don't think we can afford to do, because time is clearly of the essence here, the thing we can't afford to do is spend months and months trying to decide who we're going to pick to lead this effort. So I'm recommending that read this thoroughly, and hopefully we can reach a consensus that this is the right way to go.
Gary and Steve, a couple questions. You know, what has become universal, I think, is that we need to get back on the federal shoreline protection plan.
For sure.
Just for federal funding, for state funding, but even for the ranking in the state. The single most important thing we can do to elevate, we can do all sorts, we can have more access ways, it's not going to gain the amount of points that we need that being in the federal shoreline protection plan is. So we need to do that immediately. So it sounds like this person can certainly help, but do we also need someone? And I think, you know, Congresswoman Ross-Layton has been a very good representative and friend of this island. But do you suggest that we need to look for also federal lobbyists to hit with all the agencies?
Well, maybe, but
Okay.
I think that that's one of the things that we ought to talk to Colleen about.
For sure.
enough.
I mean, that's within the scope of what she's proposing.
And so the second thing is, because this is so hyper specialized, can we act and go with her because she has unique criteria,
Yes.
qualifications
Yes.
that are just not something that you get in an RFP?
Even if she didn't have those qualifications, there's an exemption for professional consultants within our procurement ordinance.
Gary, thank you so much for doing this, and we've got a couple of questions.
Sure.
Yes.
When you have discussed this with her, are you also working on the concept of things that we could put in place if we were to be so lucky to get a large renourishment in order to try to retain our beaches for a longer period of time?
The answer is I didn't go into those details with her, but that's part of the reason why it's so very important to get a really qualified engineer to design our project, because that would be part of the design. And that, before we can go to any agency, it's just like you can't go get a building permit before you've got your plans. We can't go to any of these agencies until we have a completely thorough, finished plan developed by a qualified engineer, and that would certainly be part of it.
Brett, did you have a question?
Yes. So what I wanted to understand is that her scope of work is develop a team, advise and recommend us, represent us, lead our efforts, and to work with the government on our side. And it's tied to a 2-year term. If we're doing a project, does she see that we would have this done within 2 years, or could this extend much more time? Have we had this conversation with her that we might just need her services for 2 years?
Well, you know, she's the one that suggested 2 years, because this project, this consulting project, is designed to do one thing: design a proper beach renourishment program and get it approved by all 3 agencies, and at the same time get us qualified for funding. Not only is that a reasonable timeline, it's almost a mandatory timeline, because if we miss this September or October of 2018 timetable, we're going to lose out on a lot.
And I just want to make sure that we're receiving what we want to receive from her within that 2 years, and there's not a misconception. Because if she's leading the effort, and it's just that beginning part to get all the permitting done, and then she leaves, and then we're like, oh, who's leading us to finish the project? I just want to make sure that's very clear. I see no problems with her right now.
She would stay with us as long as we wanted her to. And as a matter of fact, she told me yesterday when I spoke to her that she would be more than happy to come down and speak to the entire council, either in a workshop fashion or in a regular council meeting, and answer any questions you had. To the extent you want to. But I think that that's something, if the will of the council is to do that, we probably ought to jump on that at the next meeting, because if we don't...
I would suggest June 13th, and we evaluate this and make a decision.
Well,
but go on, yes.
Okay, so as far as a leader's concerned, absolutely, I'm in favor of that. Now, whether this lady is the one or not, it seems to me like she is. Can we get her here so that she can meet with 2 or 3 of us at a time? We'd have a sunshine meeting before June 13th, so that we're ready to vote for this on June 13th. That's the way
I think she'd be amenable to anything we recommend.
Oh, that's what I would suggest. I would suggest that we start on this, like, starting today. We start setting up meetings for her, in like a 2-day period or whatever, so that she can meet with whoever of us wants to meet with her. I certainly want to meet with her, and get it done before the next meeting. That's what I'd like to do.
It might help shape her presentation to the
And I would suggest, wonderful, if Madam Clerk, if you could set up the meetings with her, the different council members, sunshine meetings, but I think it would be good for the benefit of our community if she did a presentation on June 13th. I would be, provided we get all our questions answered and we are as happy as we seem to be, I'd be happy to make a decision on the 13th. I think she is extremely qualified, and this is time sensitive. So that's a little bit of a timeline, if you guys all agree.
To me, each one of you, some dates and times that you're available before I contact her.
You may want to contact her and get 2 dates from her.
From her, and then propose them to you? Okay.
Otherwise, we're
the
going to
other
go
way
back and forth.
Okay. Perfect.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much.
You bet. I hope it works out.
Item on the mayor's discussion of sustainability plan. Councilmember Moss.
put this on the agenda because it's come up quite a few times in the advocacy committee on the Chamber of Commerce. And we've been looking at this plan and I've read it quite a few times and met with a lot of people who were involved with putting it together. And I've also heard a few times where we said we've adopted it or we haven't. So I got clarification from the clerk. And in fact, it has never been formally adopted. It was only accepted on May 27th, 2014. The council accepted it from the committee members. And I know that there may be some issues in the sustainability plan of maybe why it wasn't formally adopted. And what I was recommending, what I wanted to see if I could get council consensus is to maybe direct the manager to work with a couple of the staff members and maybe one or two of the former committee members to relook at it, see if they can make some adjustments to it so it could fit to our liking and that we could turn this into a formal resolution and also think of ways that we could implement it as well, because I think it's a very good document. There are definitely some tweaks that could be done in here that I came across, but I think that with a couple tweaks, we could have a great sustainability plan that we can actually implement into our decision making.
Could you
circulate it to everyone again?
Sure.
Yes, Frank.
I'd like to do that. I think the idea of a sustainability director was controversial when this was brought forward. I'm not sure that there was anything else that was controversial, but I'd love to look at this again. This is a bit of a shame that so much work and a really good work product just, sits around.
Yeah, there's some small things that I found in there that I would look at, and one, for instance, is trying to require homes to be LEED Platinum, and I'm LEED Platinum or higher, happening. And there really is nothing higher than LEED Platinum. It is the highest, and it's very expensive and difficult to achieve that. So that could be just a modification to a LEED certification or LEED Silver or LEED Bronze, which is a little bit easier to achieve. But when you mandate that high so there's minor things in there that could be tweaked and that could easily be done.
One suggestion, we meant to do this, and I think we never did, is to try to see whether there's a marriage between the PACE program and the sustainability plan. Mm-hmm. They both exist in co-ate ways, and if they could be made a little bit more tangible and married, I think we'd be proud of that.
Fabulous idea.
Would we be able to have consensus to have the manager maybe, I don't know if it's Mariana or whatever staff members that then maybe with Derek, who used to be the former chair, just to we could give them some guidance of what were controversial to us and what we might want to look, and they could quickly do something and maybe bring it back to us.
I think the lead part was aspirational. If you feel like it could be worded less seeming mandatorily, that's fine. Sure. The only thing I remember is the sustainability director, which had more to do with the budget plug number than.
And I don't think that's a problem of taking that out. I mean,
the woman sitting in the back there was my idea to just fill that role in her spare time.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
No.
That's fine. I think there's a whole.
I believe that there'll be a clerk's opening, and then there'll be things that'll change. But her experience and where she was before will be invaluable. I've got some ideas, but we'll meet with Derek again.
But that's a whole. See, that I see this almost as two tiers. One is let's get something approved as a sustainability plan. The second is how do we move forward on implementation of that?
Yeah.
And I think that comes into a hybrid system or how we want to do it, or there's different ways that it can be looked at. That's a little bit more complex, but I definitely can see that could be taken out of here and just look at what we want to do as policy making in here.
Does it make sense to circulate that and then have us forward our thoughts and comments so that they can get working on it and then bring it to us to facilitate the process?
Makes perfect sense.
I'll send this to Conchita to send out to everybody.
I'd also, I'd suggest we do a workshop and invite the former members as well, because it was part of, I think, and our community. We want people to act in an environmentally conscious way. We do a workshop with this as a
educational,
almost semi-draft and educational, and it's part of engaging our community.
Mm-hmm.
It's late in the hour now, and I won't bring this up substantively now, but this will lead us to the discussion about a mini Zork inevitably. So we should be prepared for that.
And also, we have a resiliency meeting coming up May 18th in Chambers.
workshop.
A workshop.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Two quick items.
Yes.
One is I wanted to tell you that we finally reached an agreement with the county attorney's office on the language in the deed for the parking lot, the police parking lot. And it was it was a challenge. I just want you to know that.
What?
We have a workshop on May 18th?
Yes.
I don't have it. Yeah, I don't have it either.
I'm not
We're
here.
not aware. I'm not aware.
I'm not here either.
I'm not
Yeah,
here.
I don't
on
have
May
it in my
18th.
calendar.
Not here.
I don't have it
And
either.
he's not here, and she's not here.
I think it's a community workshop for resiliency. It was not set by us. It was set by.
Okay.
Aren't we invited?
I think we are invited, but if we need to reschedule, let's do it now.
Right. That's why I'm
Don't shoot the messenger.
Ours, we can contact the foundation.
Yes.
It's the foundation.
Oh, the foundation.
That does the
Oh,
whole.
okay, it's not council. Okay.
But if you all, but we should all be doing this kind of sort of together.
Yeah.
So if you want to reschedule it because it's important for us to know.
I mean, I
Well-
think we should be there. As many of us as care about it, you know, I mean.
So, anyway, that if I can just finish on this, there's two items. So we reached
Yes.
an agreement on the language. We had previously put in there that we could just use it for any governmental use. That is still in here, but the county wants us to tell them in advance what use it is we're putting it to ensure that somehow we don't get started with a project and all of a sudden they come around and say, oh, wait a minute, that's not a governmental use. So we have a mechanism here where it's really just a confirmation that under Chapter 125, which is all governmental activities, we're within that.
Use that
Okay.
mechanism, please.
So we have that.
Good.
The next thing I wanted to report to you is that on the RFQ, I apologize that it's not here before you, but I did change the language in the RFQ, and let me just read quickly to you what we did so that we can terminate the contract that we enter into at any phase of the project. And here it is. Okay. The language that I've now inserted is well, that didn't help me, did it? Really good fingers at this. Cancel. The selected proposer and the village will execute an agreement which provides in part the phases of the project. The first phase of the project shall consist of data gathering and developing a program and scope of the project. The village reserves the right in its sole discretion to issue a notice to proceed for each phase of the project as further described in the agreement and to terminate the agreement after the completion of any phase. Okay? So what you wanted the right to do and asked us to do is make it clear that this is a phased project that we're asking them to do, and that we have a right after we learn, for example, about what the program's going to be to say, nope, that's it, we're done, we're out of this. Okay? So if that's acceptable now, and I think that's what you wanted, the manager, I think, intends to put out the RFQ for a program manager to start the process.
Can we see the language?
Sure, I'm happy to send it to you. Do you want me to bring it back?
No, just send it.
Send it.
Okay, fine.
So, Steve, one of the things I just, I've been following up on the Palm Beach situation. Okay, Palm Beach went out and got a consultant, Kimley Horn, to do all the programming.
That's
they
what
were
this is.
supposed to actually do the project, so it was soup to nuts. My understanding is that the price that's come up is so high that they are now at the 11th hour asking for peer review. I want to avoid that.
I don't know if that actually is what happened, and I'll definitely take a look at that. I believe that they hired the engineers to do the project. It did come up higher. They were able to value engineering, but when I read the minutes of that meeting, it was only the Underground Utility Task Force debated whether they would like to satisfy the public to make sure that they double check to make sure this was the best price, and they wanted a peer review before that went. That was my understanding
The way
of what that was.
I read it when I read the different reportings of it was that if they were expecting $90 million and it was $98 million plus some of the cost for the maintenance and the repairs had been shifted to other budgets. And so there was concern. And so at the 11th hour, they were coming in for a peer review because the guarantees and what the bond was supposed to be is now a challenge. And so, I mean,
it's understandable.
I want to not be in that situation.
Well, then you need to pick somebody that you have confidence in.
Yes.
And it may not be them.
Fair enough.
But there's going to, so yes, I will send the language around. If anybody wants to tweak it, they can. And then we'll be issuing the RFQ.
The only other thing I remember that in the RFQ, two things. One, you're saying that we can terminate at any phase, but in the RFQ, there was already a clause in there saying we can terminate at any time that we want. We can still do that.
Yes.
It's not going to override that in any way. The second one was that we had the name Giordano in there many, many times, and I think it's better. And we can use them, no problem, but it's still better that if we're going to send an RFQ, we just put in there owners, village owners rep.
I've done that also.
Okay, that's it. That was my only concerns.
Okay.
Next item, Madam Mayor, is allocation of playing fields and recreational programming for teens. Your item.
Sure. This is actually a place marker for discussions that we've had, Allison, you being one of the leads on it. And it is allocation of playing fields and programming for teens and for programs such as the Under the Lights. I know in the different safety and teen programming that we've done, the reoccurring theme is our children have nothing to do. And what seems to happen and what the parents point out is, kids, a lot of kids play soccer until they're about, 12 years old. And at that age, if you're not on the A team or the B team, you're frustrated, so you don't necessarily want to play soccer and be in a non-competitive team. So they drop out of that and they don't find another activity. So we've talked about it, and I just want to make sure that in terms of our budgeting process and our policy-making process, that we are clear that we want to include teen programming, but also allocate our primary fields for this recreational. They should be a priority. This is part of our government function. So whether it's ultimate frisbee that's been talked about, flag football that's been talked about, just pick up soccer in a simplified way. You had a couple of other ideas that you mentioned.
Working on some kind of gaming tournament, but that's as far as my understanding goes. But it sounds like you have a really good time.
That's
cornhole
tournament. Things that the kids can really just go to a place and play, and they know that there's going to be a group. We're missing that, and it's just something that they tell Chief Lang, and that's come up, and it's all the kids, not a select kids. It also has to be inclusive and safe, but it's just we're listening to our residents, our parents, and it's a priority. Yes.
I think that there's a new impetus, I guess I'll call it, within the Youth Advisory Board to bring things like that back into activities. In particular, I know that they've started flag football again, which was, I thought, magnificent. And I think we should look to them to lead this effort and bring them as many ideas as we may have, because they sit there and they talk about it and then they program it and then they set it up and Todd's on top of it and such like that. I think that's the way to do it, because at one point it was all about organized, serious sports, and it's not. I think that the focus is starting to change a little bit so that we have things for kids that aren't necessarily competing at the high level of soccer or rugby or something like that.
There was a night basketball league that people used to love. the point is the kids that are not, travel or doing travel sports at age 13,
Right.
14 need, and it shouldn't be a
Even
cost. It should
even
be
older
free.
kids, even
And the older
older,
kids.
even older
It's
than
about-
13 or 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. When my son comes home, well, now he's graduating next week, by the way.
Congratulations.
But whenever he came home from school, all his friends would get together and play rooftop soccer someplace, 3 or 4 times a week.
But he's older and he can drive. We've got kids.
Right,
that
right,
are,
right. So-
but the thing is, the
So
ultimate frisbee.
let's do it back here.
Yeah, well, and there was talk too, when we had that, when Chief Preston, Chief Lang, and I hosted some parents with concerns about kids in this age group. There was talk even just about having the lights on later at the park for kids to do, not even organized, but pick up soccer.
You got to be careful there.
Play something, what they
Gotta-
want.
gotta-
Well,
gotta-
they're in
gotta
the
be careful
park
there.
anyway, and without a light on them,
Yeah.
what they're doing, you probably don't want
Yeah.
going on either.
You got to have some kind of organization. But I think the right idea is to go to Todd, so he gets his youth advisory board, involved in it, and give him all kinds of ideas and see if he can make it happen. That's.
Well,
Yeah,
guys,
I think Todd's on it.
Todd, thank you. Can't wait to see it in the budget. Okay, I'm done with
Next
that.
item, pilot bike sharing program, Councilmember Clayton.
Yes.
Okay, I just quickly wanted to ask all of you if you'd be willing to, with me, authorize the manager to negotiate and enter into an agreement with Lime Bikes to get a pilot program going for the summer and to hopefully get bikes on the island by the end of this month. And then bring a report back to us August 28th on how that program worked so that we can do a more formalized contract.
Can we do
So
that?
what's the cost?
Yes, you can do it.
0.
Let's do it.
No, don't forget.
It's too much.
At 0 cost?
So what's wrong with this picture?
Just need the yes.
Got consensus.
Great.
Can I have a motion, please?
Move. Second.
Call the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Move to adjourn.
We had the RFQ and open director positions. Are we good?
That was mine. Very quick. I know that we have some big open positions. Yeah, I think it was Luis. I know that we have some big open positions. Could you send me maybe just the job descriptions? I just want to look over them because I know some of these positions are, we haven't hired someone in a long time, and there might be some things in policy, like when I was reading the sustainability plan, just to make sure maybe if that's where we're going in that direction, that some of the stuff is in there. That's all. Thank you.
Do I have a
Move to
motion?
adjourn?
Meeting adjourned.